The master was busy training his young disciples. Their mission: hold the classic horse stance for 2 agonizing hours. But Mujin looked around and saw a huge, glaring problem, something even a child should have noticed. These poor fools were about to completely destroy their knees and backs. The master, however, was smugly confident. That is, until Mujin declared that they were all ignorant worms who didn't even grasp the basics. The master and the other sect leaders were utterly floored. The students couldn't believe their ears. The master pointed a trembling finger at him and asked if he'd lost his mind, along with every strand of his hair. The adults immediately accused him of making up excuses because the training was too tough. But Mujin stood his ground, insisting this entire training method was garbage. The master was seething. This little brat was claiming the 1,000-year-old Shaolin tradition was completely wrong. Mujin then broke it down for them. That stance destroys knee cartilage way faster than it ever builds leg muscle. Of course, the master knew nothing about the concept of knee cartilage. He just called him a quitter again, saying Mujin was simply too weak to handle it. Our main character shot back a question: if martial arts are to train the body, then saying a weak person can't do it makes the whole thing a contradiction. The master was stunned silent. So Mujin pressed on. If this method is just to make kids suffer, to train their minds for future pain, then shouldn't all the adults who endured this already have reached enlightenment or something by now? Mujin's logic planted seeds of doubt in the other young monks. But then, he pointed at the top disciple and asked why that old geezer was still a clueless mortal at his age. The master roared, his fury exploding. For a moment, Mujin actually felt a real threat. The old man approached him and made a little proposal. If this disciple was so sure, he would have to prove it against the others without their precious training. He would face a trial by combat against the academy's top student. That big powerhouse kid would be his foe. The kid promptly stood, accepting the challenge. Mujin, on the other hand, knew this was a total setup. The weight difference between them was huge. The master expected Mujin to cower and flee, but he was dead wrong. Our hero accepted the absurd challenge. He would win. The man's face twitched, with rage. This kid was beyond just stubborn, he was becoming a problem. The elder turned and barked his orders for everyone to resume training. Mujin could train however he wished until the duel. A friend called Mujin, both incredibly brave and totally insane for that little speech about knees. The enraged master sent everyone back. That old man was positively fuming. To be questioned so openly in front of his students was a grave insult. You could see it on their faces. Doubt was creeping into their minds. The fight was set for 7 days. Mujin began his own custom workout before everyone. Some senior students tried to muscle him for being different, but the master was watching nearby and confirmed he was allowed. Our boy then took the chance to ask the students how badly their knees were aching because of that terrible stance. But none of them realized this was not the same timid boy from before. In his past life, our hero came from the modern world, owning a gym. His entire life was building muscle and spirit. How to sculpt the perfect physique. His clients achieved peak aesthetics. Under his guidance, this fitness fanatic adored a novel, Murmur Manas. But one night, he just conked out. Maybe he even died while reading. What truly matters is that he awoke, inside the body of a boy, Mujin. The 200-pound trainer was now a young, bald Shaolin monk. His new memories were a perfect match for the story's main character from the book he had just been reading. On his first day, he watched these bald monks train and inwardly cringed. He just couldn't stay silent. Now he's set on proving to the masters that there is a better way, to build a body. Meanwhile, the other students were trembling from pain, but Mujin was capable of pushing his own body much further without strain. After 2 hours, a novice named Gang was starving for a meal when Muyel finally called everyone to eat. He saw the meal and scoffed. "Is this it?" At the head of the table, a master invited all the novices to eat. But Mujin recalled that temple food is all vegetarian. He blurted out, "Where's the protein?" Then he realized how vivid the smell of the food in this dream was. The aroma was decent, but he knew it was just vegetables. To him, it was grass. Pounding the table, Mujin roared, "This is absolute abuse!" A voice boomed. "Who dares disturb mealtime?" Screaming, he retorted. "We trained all morning long," he demanded. "And you expect us to eat this?" Rising to his feet, Mugong asked, "What is all this commotion?" He seethed. "That boy has been nothing but trouble since dawn." Approaching him, he growled, "Enough is enough. I will teach you some discipline." But Mujin declared, "A body needs protein to recover, and I will not stand for this situation." Called by Mujin and Mugong, suddenly look aside. The head chef, Yun Moon, appears. The Shaolin Temple's head cook was just passing by. With a smirk, he comments on how that poor disciple must be starving. He offers to give him more rice, but Mujin insists. "I already have enough." The chef then dangles a question. "Does the young man want more sides? The boy is clearly hungry." Mujin's eyes gleam. Do you have any protein powder? Or better yet, some chicken breast? The room goes silent. The chef and monks just stare at him. One of them whispers, "What is wrong with that guy?" Muyel approaches. He's been acting weird all morning. She asks, "Are you feeling okay?" Mujin just shouts, "I need protein, so I can get totally ripped." He wonders what's going on. The training felt way too real. The food smells like actual food. So why haven't I woken up yet? He questions. If this is all a dream, if this is real, he's in deep trouble. He needs to be way more careful. He remembers he's a Shaolin disciple. He has to watch what he says. Bowing his head, he apologizes. "I was so hungry," he explained. "I didn't know what I was saying." The head chef nods. "You must be tired." From all the training? Taking a chance. Mujin asks, "Can I get some beans? Or mushrooms then?" But the chef just stares at him in dead silence. Dream or not, a guy still needs his protein. The routine of training, breakfast. And studying boring scriptures was already starting to crush his soul. Fine, he's stuck inside a novel. He wonders, so how do I get back? Home. An idea suddenly sparks. Maybe he can leave once the story ends. Concludes, as the star of a legendary martial arts sect, he's obviously blessed with amazing talent. Whoops! By spilling ink, he has just created a brand new mess. Realizing this, he sees he is now surrounded by the other monks. And it finally dawns on him he has drawn way too much attention. All of them just stare back in silence. The entire room's gaze is on him, but he just figures that since he's here, there is no point in worrying now. The head chef is questioned by Master Hejong. Is that rumor really true? And he confirms. That boy is certainly odd. Hyen Moon then asks, "What will you do about Mujin?" Master Hejong states, "I've given him 1 week to prove it, by dueling against Mugong." Hyen Moon calls the plan a smart move, a wise way to avoid any criticism. But he still questions the choice of opponent. Why make him fight Mugong every year? The temple takes in hundreds of kids, but most can't take the intense training, and they simply give up. A small fraction of the initial group are ever accepted as true official disciples. Because of this, it is rare for even a senior monk to know a child's name. But Mugong is one of those chosen few, one of the truly elite, Haijong says. Mugong is the perfect man for this job. He will be sure to teach that boy a Chanti lesson, and just as he promised. A week later, Master Haijong announced the time had finally come. He then asked if both were completely ready. Turning, Muyel asks Mujin just what he is doing. He simply replies that they are warm-up, stretches, to make it sound impressive. He calls it the forelimb extension. Technique. This is just a fancy name for a warm-up, which prepares his muscles and also relaxes ligaments. Countless weird poses existed, all designed to enhance flexibility and movement. Inviting Muyel to join, Mujin said, "It's a great habit." The other monks just stared, completely confused by what they were seeing and those bizarre stances. Muyel, a natural, immediately copied the moves, earning praise from Mujini. But then, one of the monks pointed at Mugong's fists, asking if that was the legendary chain fist. Mugong answered with a sharp punch. A murmur went through the other monks. His power was truly unbelievable. They could feel the air shatter with his blows. A cold sweat ran down Mujin's back. He knew he was done for if even one of those fists connected. How could he? Possibly defeat that monster in a week. Doubts flooded his mind as he wondered how on earth he could take him on. Then, a light bulb went off in his head. Suddenly, he had the perfect strategy. Master Haijong recalled the moment, remembering Mujin's claim that he was not just dodging his training sessions. The boy didn't follow the rules, but he had his own peculiar training style, Mujin had explained. "I'm perfecting a way to down Mugong in a single strike." Still, the master saw a boy just rubbing a tree over and over. He was confident Mugong would handle that brat's terrible attitude problem. Noticing the stare, Mugong saw Master Hong watching him intently. He vowed this boy would simply become his next stepping stone to greatness. Mujin, however, remained totally unfazed. He just stood up and casually stretched. He then motioned to Master Hejong, asking if they could finally start. The kid's shocking nerve irritated both of them. The tension thickened. Stepping forward, Mugong declared, "I'll show you." Mujin calmly faced his opponent, waiting for the signal. Displaying complete confidence, Mugong showed off his painstakingly perfected chain fist stance. Then, the master roared, "Begin!" In a flash, Mujin exploded forward, stunned. Mugong barely reacted to the sudden advance. Realizing the danger, he knew this was a serious attack. The other monks, completely surprised, gawked at his speed, seeing he had already dodged the chain fist. Grabbing Mugong, he paused, knowing he could not use true combat arts on a mere boy. His techniques were designed for real battle, where any mistake could prove fatal. So, the ideal technique now, was one any child could theoretically withstand. He brought him down with a simple tackle, acting decisively. Hitting the ground with a thud, Mugong absorbed the brutal impact. In just a second, Mujin secured an arm lock and shouted. The other monks had no idea what was happening, simply telling Mugong to endure it. They couldn't believe what they were seeing as pure. Shock set in. Was Brother Mugong actually losing already, writhing on the ground? Mugong was totally confused about what had transpired. Desperately, trying to coach him. Some monks yelled to use his legs and just roll, but it was already too late. Even without knowing the name of an arm lock, their training screamed at them, letting them recognize a painful hold when they saw it. Mujin warned him. Your arm is going to break. You should just give up. Get up, the other monks kept shouting. They reminded him that his opponent was completely untrained. Annoyed, Mujin asked, can you feel the bones starting to pop? The damage might be permanent. He insisted Mugong either break free or just give up. The shouts continued as the monks chanted Mugong's name. Watching it all unfold, Mujin and the others simply kept their eyes locked on them. Finally, he let the boy go with an apology. Then, a monk glanced toward Master Hai Zhang, asking what should be done now. Nearing the fallen Mugong, Mujin said, this is what you get for making him fight some kid. The chain fist technique, as described in an ancient text, has simple fundamentals. As a form of the 8 extremes fist, it relies on the fist, elbow, and shoulder strikes, all to overwhelm an opponent instantly. It's perfect for close-range fighting. And among the rookie children, Mugong was the one who had supposedly mastered it. Even the older generation of students were amazed by his chain fist. But that morning, his famous technique was crushed by the bizarre style of a total troublemaker. With barely a fight, he was utterly defeated. Sitting up, he whined that it was a cheap shot, and Mujini asked what he was talking about. Mugong accused him, saying he was jumped right at the start with some strange technique he'd never seen. Screaming, he claimed. In a real match, I would have won. Muhene tried to soothe his ego. As he walked off, he added, my name is Mugong. You got that? The other monks began to murmur. He has a point. Shaolin matches must use Shaolin arts. Mujin broke that rule. One of the monks then wondered why the chain fist wasn't used. In response, Mujin said if he had used it, they would have just traded brutal hits, and both of them would be injured. He proudly stated that he won without even harming him. But his opponent? That's not how it works, they protest. Only Shaolin techniques are allowed. They simply refuse to accept this. Their legendary chain fist, beaten so easily? By some random kid using strange moves, the sheer audacity is unthinkable. One of them admits Mugong clearly lost. He even wonders if they're being irrational. But he's terrified of the consequences. This could stain the Shaolin reputation. In a worst-case scenario, they might lose all their students. Desperate, they turn to Master Ha Zhang. They beg him to tell them what to do. But he's just smiling. What is he thinking, Mujin? Master Ha Zhang calls out. He summons the boy, who approaches. The master has a simple question. Is it true you defeated him without injury, using a technique to subdue, not destroy? Mujin confirms it with a nod. Now that, the master says, is the Shaolin spirit. He boldly announces Mujin as today's winner. A wave of pure shock hits the monks. They're all completely stunned by the decision. Even Mujin is confused by this twist. Why is the master being so merciful now? But Master Hai Zhang begins to explain. His technique was super effective because the opponent only knew brute force. Now then, he affirms, I will show you the true essence of our martial arts. As he prepares, he makes an announcement. Behold Shaolin's real power against evil. He then drags a massive stone into the courtyard. 2 monks scramble to make space. Mujin's mind races. Is the old man planning to break that with his bare hands? He realizes this is a personal demonstration. The master plants his feet on the ground. Observe carefully, he tells everyone. This is what you are all training for. He then lays his hand gently on the rock. He's about to show them the real chain fist. With a powerful shout, he strikes. A powerful fist met solid rock. With a crack, the boulder shattered into countless fragments. In awe, the monks buzzed amongst themselves. They finally grasped the chain fist's power. So this was the might of the first disciple. A grin spread across Mujin's face. Now this is what I call true marine martial arts. It can pierce a mountain with one explosive blow. It's beyond limits. You can strike down hundreds of foes with a single sword dance. Or even make an enemy explode with just one punch. But a monk cut in, asking Master Hai Zhang about defense. Isn't that our ultimate goal? He turned. The master simply said, yes, it is. Pointing to the wreckage, Mujin gestured. And we should defend ourselves. With that kind of intensity, the master replied with a slight smile. Perhaps not. Later, the morning calmed. Hyeonsong was questioned by his own master. That boy, Mujin, he began. Did he truly beat Mugong in an instant? Haijong confirmed it without hesitation. His master's face grew serious. He's not just some peculiar child. He explained that while Mujin complains about morning training, the boy practices the chain fist more than anyone, far more than any other novice. The master's eyes narrowed. You think he's studying it just to defeat it? Haijong confirmed his suspicion. Hyeon-song then asked for his thoughts. A chilling possibility was raised. Could the boy be a spy from the sinister faction? Or worse, the demonic cult? The accusation hung heavy in the air. Meanwhile, Mujin was just bored. By all the ancient scriptures, his master couldn't shake the thought. Master Haijong was now questioning it too. Could that kid really be a spy? But Hyeon-song had doubts. A real spy would never be so obvious. That's not stealth, that's a spectacle. His master declares there's no need to worry. The kid is clearly an amateur. He's just a novice, and only time will reveal if he's a spy or just a weirdo. Then, a new theory sparks in his mind. What if he proposes? The boy isn't just some random kid. What if he's from a proper martial arts clan? After all, a nobody couldn't invent those bizarre techniques on his own. He's probably just showing off his family's secret moves. He figures that, high on his father's legacy, the kid would trash Shaolin's 1,000-year traditions just to prove his own family's style is superior. And after his win against Magong, his ego would be unstoppable. That could make things very messy. To solve this, Hyun suggests a plan. Perhaps they should call on Bayup Gang for a little assistance. Haejong is shocked by this. Isn't he a member of the Discipline Hall? His master reassures him with a grin. Bayup Gang still considers himself one of Arhat Hall's own, and his presence is a game changer. Elsewhere, a trio of young monks call it a day on their training. But one of them suddenly stops. He urges them to take another route, leaving his friends bewildered. Naturally, they sneak a peek to see what spooked him, asking if he saw a ghost. Across the courtyard, they spot a man, training with intense focus. One monk recognizes him. Hey, it's the Inquisitor, Brother Bob Gang. He asks again, what is he doing here? They whisper among themselves, totally confused why the man who always trained so late is out here at this hour, holding a flawless horse stance. The youngsters watched on, wondering why. Was he there just to watch them? To push them to train even harder? Another monk scoffed, saying Bob Gang was always this intense. No wonder they called him the Inquisitor. One of the kids laughed, chiming in, Bayop Gang, the wild mutt of the hall, has finally found his true calling. But another monk quickly corrected them. He revealed that Brother Bayop Gang would be returning to Arhat Hall to join them, starting tomorrow. Shocked, they couldn't believe what they heard. They thought he was heading to the Discipline Hall next term. It was well known that Bup Gang had a high rank and had set a tough standard of discipline for his juniors. Hearing he was visiting other halls to better understand their rules before returning to his new post, rumors began to fly. But Bayop Gang was rigorous, leading by example. He never asked others to do something he wasn't willing to do himself. Ever since basic training, he pushed harder than anyone, ruining his knees. It took all his inner strength to endure the searing pain. Even when walking, they barely worked. For him, this was a sacred journey, and pain was just a stop along the way. After 30 long minutes in the stance, he rose to his feet and asked, where is that boy? Mujin, Bayop Gang pictured, the legendary troublemaker, and the rising star of Arhat Hall that Master Hunong had described. The next day, the young monks stared forward, and one questioned what he was seeing. Before them stood Brother Bayop Gang himself. Questions flew about what he was doing there. He announced, I have model Shuz. I've been transferred, so from this day forward, I'll be seeing your faces again. This news shocks one of the boys. Bob Gang just laughs, telling them to suck it up. Watching him, Mujin gets a bad feeling. He can tell this guy is the military type. The other monks begin to whisper, wondering why he's suddenly back. But Mujin simply observes the chaos. Utter confusion sweeps over the novices, who don't get Bob Gang's presence here. But amid the drama, Mujin instantly grasps the situation. He figures out that this new instructor must have been the drill sergeant from his own generation. As morning training starts, the boy thinks, not my problem. But then Bob Gang orders everyone into the horse stance, pacing among them like a wolf. He declares that to discipline someone, you must first know their flaws. To attack with absolute precision, he says, you must understand their very foundation. And with that, he begins the dreaded inspection tour. He spots one of the monks, legs spread, back ramrod straight, and toes pointing perfectly forward. Copying the exact same pose, Bob Gang sneers. And what is this, kiddo? He thinks the moves look more like some kind of dance. He notes the breathing with each gesture, but then it hits him the pain. is identical to the horse stance. Aha, he thought. Just a fancy excuse? Dramatic music. As Mujin straightens up, Bopgang calls out, "Your posture is garbage." Then, Bopgang dares him. Explain how it's wrong. Trapped, Mujin realizes he has to break down the form from head to toe. He still didn't get why he was being copied. Mujin could hear the man's cartilage creak with every single bend. That pained sound made him realize he couldn't just ignore the poor guy's knees practically screaming for mercy. He pieced it all together. If that man was indeed the drill sergeant, then getting him on his side would be a huge advantage. Mujin smirked as Bopgang asked again what the problem was. The young man noted that for bad knees. This kind of exercise is poison. Mind if I show you something, he offered, and then he demonstrated a simple stretch right there on the ground. Mujin praised his surprising flexibility as the other monks just stared in utter confusion. Ahem, Mujin corrected himself, calling it the four-limb extension technique. He explained that this exact position allows the knees muscles to relax. He promised that warming up this way would make his movements far smoother. During the actual training, taking the load right off his knees, Bopgang had to agree he could feel the difference. Mujin instructed 30 seconds a set for a total of 3 music sets. The whole movement needed 3 reps. That was just the first set, he said. Time to go again? Mujin saw Bopgang was still flat on the ground. Moving in, he began to massage the man's leg. Feel any better? He asked. Seeing the man's reaction, he knew even light pressure was causing intense pain. Decades of grueling training had destroyed his knees. But as the massage went on, Bopgang felt a distinct change. He thought back. At first, it was pure agony, like an attack. But now the pain was fading, replaced by a strange, almost pleasant sensation. Mujin informed him, "We've only done this twice, we still have 1 more set to go." But Bopgang, "Is this really necessary right now?" he asks, getting a shove from behind. The young man retorts, "Training waits for no one." Glancing back, Bopgang thinks, "Just who the heck is this kid?" From afar, Master Haijong and his students watch on, wondering just what Bopgang is even doing. Mujin explains it's a special exercise for those with knee troubles, known as the Inquisitor. He was a true Orthodox fanatic, obsessed with the rules. Thanks to him, his fellow second-gen disciples never got a single moment of peace. Even as novices, they were all too aware of his intense devotion. That's why they couldn't see why Bopgang and this novice were now performing the same odd movements. Mid-training, Mujin suddenly suggests they take a breather, then do 15 more sets. As music. The boy questions him, asking why he's dropping into a full squat position. "I told you not to do that," he says. "Not with your knees in that shape," he explains. "It's much better to do a slight bend to relieve the pressure." So he offers to review everything Gang must do, and Gang agrees. "First," he says, "you need to bend your knees and lower your body slowly. Second, you have to realize the move isn't controlled by your knees at all, but by your hip and glute muscles. And third," he guides, "use those exact muscles to rise back to the start." After the set, Mujin asks how it felt. Bopgang admits that he feels okay. With that, they decide to take a rest. He noticed the difference immediately. There was definitely less pain that time. Mujin announces, "Now that we've cleared 3 sets, we can begin the next phase." Calves. A memory sparks in his mind. He'd seen tough military types before, and he knew their secret weakness. The bigger the ego, the harder they fell for a little bit of praise. Mujin remarks on his quick learning. The Bibe monk just scoffs, boasting, "He's been a Shaolin for 18 years. The other monks could only stare, confused. What happened to the wild dog from before? This one seemed practically tame. Watching this, Master Haijong's blood pressure skyrocketed. "Oh, Buddha, give me strength." He decided to just ignore the chaos. A bell signaled the end of training. Finally, it was time for breakfast. Mujin gave him some parting advice. Use this for any lower body training. Always do it before the main exercise. Gang eagerly agreed. Won over. Mujin had him hooked, but he was still wary. After trying all that physical therapy, stretching, and even the massage, he came to one simple conclusion. These techniques were beyond incredible. The pain in his knee was almost gone. He could feel how effective the training was deep within his muscles. The methods were undeniably potent. So, Gang asked if he learned all this from his family. Such skill must come from a powerful clan. The boy had to be from noble lineage. Mujin instantly knew what they thought. They think these are secret techniques passed down for ages. He realized something. That story would explain away all his strange behavior until now. With a slight smile, Mujin confirmed it. Yes, these were taught by his family. Gang roared with laughter. calling them truly legendary skills. He clarified he was only talking about their impressive healing techniques, because in the world of martial arts, nothing surpasses Shaolin's legacy. Meeting with Mole, Mujin says he will keep his brother Bopgang's words in mind. Turning, he announces he is finished and asks for permission to withdraw, released by Beopgang. Mujin then tells Muol he should have gone on ahead, but his friend replies that he wanted to wait. Startled, Beopgang sees Master Hyajong standing right behind him. Immediately, he apologizes to his master for how the entire situation looked, and Hyajong acknowledges he is well aware of the optics. Laughing, Beopgang explains he wanted to personally experience the novice's methods to know thy enemy, and the master asks how it went. As the young men walk off, Beopgang begins to explain what he managed to figure out about that kid, Mujin. He reveals the boy isn't from a martial arts clan, but from a medical clan. A medical clan Hyajong questions what led him to such a conclusion, and Beopgang prepares his explanation. He starts saying his knees are nearly ruined from years of training. The master asks why he kept it secret. He confesses he didn't want to cause the elders any worry, and more importantly, couldn't show weakness before the other disciples. For decades, not one of his brothers noticed his knee problem, but that boy saw it right away, warning him that his knees would only get worse if he continued. In conclusion, Bopgang states that everything he just did with Mujin were actually techniques to lessen the burden on his knees. Hyajong supposes he must hail from a medical clan that treats Murim masters, but he quickly dismisses the thought with a sigh. A kid rejecting training total disaster, especially Shaolin, but Beiyang affirms kids only listen to adults they actually like. He figures, instead of brute force, he'll just become the boy's friend, a genius plan to guide him back to the path. The master agrees, seeing there is no reason to be impatient. But Mujin groans, complaining about studying boring scriptures. Right after a perfectly good breakfast, Muyel notes his face is practically purple. All right, the master declares. Since you've all grasped the basics of the chain link fist, we can finally proceed. He explains that the secret to it all is that true martial power only comes when your inner and outer strength work together. So, starting today, they will begin forging that inner power. He then summons 2 disciples for a quick demonstration. Watch carefully, he instructs, and follow Beopyong and Beopgang's lead. Now, assume the lotus position. The what now Mujin is completely lost. But then he watches one of the boys fold himself into place. Oh, that. The posture clicks. The master guides them. Now, close your eyes, he instructs, and simply focus on your breathing. He leads them, asking them to pull in a deep breath through their nose, and keep on breathing slowly until they can feel the air gathering at their core, the center of their chi. Mujin is buzzing. Yes, this was it, the real Miriam martial arts he'd always read about in stories. He gets into position, so tired of the repetitive and, in his opinion, wrong training. He readies himself for the main event. After all that grueling basic training, the young novices were practically vibrating with excitement to finally learn the cool stuff. A question bubbled up among them. Would they finally learn how to smash a giant rock, just like Master Hijang? The hallowed arts of Shaolin. Deep in focus, every student hangs on the master's word, breathing in and out with practiced rhythm. But as this unfolds, Mujin feels a prickle of doubt. Something about this entire setup seems completely off. It's just weird. He muses that even for a simple breathing exercise, this felt nothing, like the epic training from the novels. He questions everything, wondering where the deep lessons on yin-yang, the 5 elements, and the I Ching were. But he figures they must have their own mysterious methods. So, after a bit of internal grumbling, he finally caves and just does what he's told. And why? The reason was beautifully simple. This was inner strength training, and he was practically vibrating with excitement. With that kind of legendary power, one could shatter mountains and soar the skies. After all, these were the fabled skills from Mirim novels, taught in Shaolin, and he was finally on the verge of learning them. Attention! The master's voice cuts in, telling the students to open their eyes. He explains that this breathing rhythm is a meditation to perceive, and then collect chi, the very essence needed to wield internal power. As a final tip, he tells them to practice this whenever they have a spare moment to sense the chi flowing within them. It dawns on Mujin that they weren't actually being taught any techniques, just the most basic of breathing. He gets the picture. First, you have to feel the chi before you can even hope to build inner strength. Just then, he spots someone passing out a book. Senior disciples begin distributing what look like pamphlets, filled with diagrams of the body's meridian lines, and one is placed in Mujin's hands. Master Hyajung clarifies they don't have to memorize the whole thing, but learning the core meridians for controlling chi and subduing your foes. These are paths where life force flows in the body, making them essential for mastering martial arts. The master calls one up and begins to teach their exact locations. Determined, Mujin glances at his book, flipping through the pages, deciding he'll memorize every chi pathway. Today, this is the first step on the Shaolin path of emptiness, so learning the meridians and practicing the chi gathering technique is now essential, but he questions himself, wondering if memorizing this stuff is truly enough. Then he spots Brother Biopgang training, asking what he's doing. Biopgang just laughs, saying the new methods have improved his knee pain. So obviously, he's training even harder. Covering his ears, Mujin sighs. I can hear your cartilage, he says. I taught you that so your knees could heal, Biopgang retorts. The strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire, and he shows off his 18 years of muscle. But Mujin just disagrees. The boy explains that if the fire's too hot, the steel just melts. It's the same with our bodies. He apologizes then, asks Biopgang to please sit down. Mujin tells him, I'm going to manipulate your chi, warning him. It's going to sting a bit while pressing his knee. He asks the man to say when it hurts, feeling those worn-out knees. The sensation triggers a memory. He recalls his time back in the defies, special forces, where every step was a show of constant effort. Despite his injuries, he trained non-stop until his own body was destroyed. But all that brutal work didn't let him stay in service. In the end, he was completely broken. That was rock bottom. He could only stare blankly as the rain poured down. Staring off, Biopgang figures he must have looked just like that. Back in the day, while working his shoulders, Mujin tells him to watch his health, because if he collapses, nobody else is going to save him. Cutting him off, Biopgang asks if he's being a little naggy. He then adds, look, I don't know what you've been through, but even if you fell apart, Shaolin would never just leave you behind. With a grin, Biopgang declares they never abandon a disciple. No matter what, offering a faint smile, Mujin says nothing at all. Then, Biopgang apologizes for the delay and asks about his destination. The kid replies that he's off to go practice the new technique. Incredulous, the man asks, haven't you done enough at home, a doctor's kid? Should already get the flow of chi. Stammering, Mujin admits that things came up and he never really got around to learning about ki flow. Biopgang then suggests, hey, let's just practice right now, pointing at himself. He says that maybe if the boy watches him, Mujin might find his chi even faster. Taking a seat, he admits he can't feel his own chi, but he figures he might absorb something just by watching an expert. The boy gets into position and announces, I'm all set, Biopgang dramatically says. Begin concentration. Kneeling, Biopgang tells him to watch closely and see what he can pick up, hoping it's useful. Then he takes a huge, deep breath and Mujin watches his every move. As the session goes on, the boy feels the very air around them begin to feel different. This was Mujin's big chance to see what the pros do. All of a sudden, he sensed something entirely new while training, a feeling that confused him. Could this be what they were all talking about looking at Biopgang? Mujin wondered. Is that chi sitting? Mujin focused on his practice. He centered his breathing, drawing chi from the world around him, directing the flow to his spiritual core. He focused on technique, posture, and visualization. Slowly, he gathered the energy, and then he felt it a current of power inside. His eyes shot open. He had done it. He could actually sense his own chi, but something wasn't quite right. Wait, why is it the size of a rice grain? Still, he savored this tiny victory. It was a huge first step for his mind. Biopgang noticed the change instantly. The boy was already sensing his energy. It proved that Master Hejong's and the director's faith wasn't misplaced. Mujin continued his training, fully accustomed to the breathing now. But then, a strange cold sensation made him pause. He cracked open one eye to peek. Snapping back to reality, he saw his master. Biopgang was standing right over him. He was shocked to see it was already dark. He quickly apologized for the late hour, trying to explain. But the master just waved it off, telling him it was fine. After thanking him for the crucial lesson, Mujin said his goodbyes. Biopgang was genuinely amazed by the level of chi he already had. Well, what do you know? He might be ready for the path of emptiness. But Mujin was puzzled by this declaration. Don't I have to memorize the meridians? The old man gave him a knowing smirk. As a doctor's son, he reminded him, you should already know them all. Mujin just chuckled awkwardly in response. Biopgang shooed him inside, saying it was getting far too late, complaining, Mujin grumbles about his little white lie about coming from a doctor's clan. The next day, the master asks for those who have felt chi and memorized the meridians to step forward. And Mujin proudly advances. But to his surprise, he realizes he isn't the only one at all. He's left wondering what is going on, looking around. He finally gets it, feeling Qi wasn't so special if others also did it. The master announces that they are ready for the next stage of training, leaving Mujin totally baffled, he thought. He was some kind of genius, showing a book. The master explains it summarizes the Buddhist path of emptiness, a key part of all Shaolin teachings. Flipping through the book, he tells them that since they're beginners, he will be brief and stick to the basic concepts. He begins his explanation, and soon, all the novices are completely astonished. Deeply impressed, the other disciples chat, amazed they felt Qi and learned the meridians in just one day. Right then, Mujin's group happens to return from training. Muyel immediately asks how he could have done all of that in a single day. The answer was simple. It wasn't that hard, because it was just the beginner level. He explains. Mujin states that first. You have to learn how to draw Qi into your body and make it circulate. You worry more about the meridians as you advance. He asks Muyel if he understood. Seeing his confusion, Mujin offers some advice. He tells the boy to concentrate on breathing, saying that understanding will come later. Taking his own advice, Mujin focuses, memorizing every meridian and its order until it's etched into his mind. It's the first step on the long path to mastery. While meditating, he feels the Qi gathering much faster now, even if they're just tiny improvements. He cheers up, realizing that this is what real inner power feels like. He was grinding hard, just like a web novel hero, and could feel himself getting stronger. The progress was coming surprisingly easy. He focused his training, sinking into Qi meditation. But then, a voice called out to him. He turned. Mule, where have you been? That's when he saw his friend, dragging someone. It looked like another monk. He had to ask, is that a corpse? It's Mugyong's body, Mule corrected him. Mujin squinted. So, is he dead? With a sigh, his friend reassured him. Mugong, one of our seniors, is still alive. Mule explained the whole story. He'd found him unconscious after trying to wake him up. The guy was a dead weight, impossible to carry. Give me a sec. Mujin immediately ran over. He crouched down beside the fallen man. He took a quick look at the unconscious monk. Peering closer, he knew something was off. The marks on his body weren't from being dragged. The truth of the situation hit him instantly. Turning to Mule, he stated the obvious. Someone beat the hell out of this guy. He pointed. He was definitely kicked, and he's covered in bruises. His friend agreed. But then a thought sparked in Mujin's mind. Why did that name sound so familiar? An image flashed in his memory. A young monk, scrawnier than the others, who always looked completely downcast. He'd only ever seen Mugyong in passing. But there was something more. Something he was missing. The name echoed with a strange importance, but he couldn't quite connect it to a face. Pushing that aside, he asked the real question. So why did he get beaten up this badly? Mule nodded. Now that's a good question. Mujin pressed on. Do you have any idea? Not yet, his friend replied. But we can find out. I've already got a pretty solid hunch. A sly grin spread across Mujin's face. I know exactly who we can ask. He laid out his simple plan. We just need to find someone who was here before us. So, before him, speaking of the one he fought, that certain troublemaker, and Muyel instantly knew who he meant. Mugong turns, asking, what is it you want? But Mu is skeptical, finding it hard to believe Mugong actually beat the new kid. He scoffs, saying it's a joke that a crybaby had the guts. But Muhine quickly points out that Mugong is the senior rookie here. He would know what things were like before. As they cross the courtyard, the two move on, while Muyel hauls the unconscious boy on his back. Suddenly, blocking their very path, Mugong appears, demanding to know what's going on. Startled, Muyel stumbles, losing his grip on the poor kid who smacks right onto the ground. The other monks just watch in silence. One even asks, did he just kill him? Mugong glares, asking why the two of them are interrupting his precious training. But Mujin steps up, confronting him. He scolds his awful attitude, telling him to act like a senior and show some care. Mugong retorts that Mujin should act like a junior and be respectful, but the boy just smirks. I've already beaten you once before. Mugong sputters, claiming he was just caught off guard. Muyel chimes in, calling him a brat. Enraged, Mugong throws a wild punch. With a quick move, Mujin easily sidesteps the clumsy attack, trapping him instantly from behind with a slick twisting technique. The senior is pinned. Muyo just sighs. Brother Mugong lost again, with his opponent totally subdued. Mujin states, you will never beat me. Do you want to know why? Tightening his grip. Mujin proposes a little trade. As Mugong squirms, he offers a bargain. He will reveal the secret behind his defeats if he spills what happened to Mugyong, releasing himself with a swift move. With a sharp move, Mugong dodges Mujin's grasp as he brushes his shoulder. Mujin smirks, noting his obvious annoyance. That stinging defeat is still fresh. He continues, saying for someone with Mugong's pride, a loss like that must be absolutely humiliating. Mugong halts, turning back as Mujin's tone hardens, demanding to know what happened to Mugyong. The truth comes out. Mugong was ambushed by Muai's crew, the heir of the powerful. Seo clan, protectors of Shaolin's merchants. A quick flashback reveals a younger Muyang beside his father, a humble servant to that very clan. Master Heman took Muai as a disciple, but also saw Mugyong's immense talent and brought him too. But Muai couldn't accept a servant's son as his equal, so the torment began. To make matters worse, Mugong's father is still employed by Muai's family, trapping him in a difficult position. Because of this, the kid can't just tattle on Muai to the masters. Through clenched teeth, Mugong argues, I might get it if this was just some ordinary school. He points an accusing finger. But this is Shaolin. Why have you done nothing about it, since you're his senior? He feebly justifies himself, asking what he's supposed to do. You're the strongest, you should protect him, Mugong's weak defense. But there are 3 of them. Mujin calls his bluff. Even Mule says you're the top dog in this temple. Flustered, Mugong backpedals. Well, maybe they only think that since the others are slacking off. That excuse just piques Mujin's interest. It clicks. Those bullies are all from powerful clans, tied to the Shaolin sect. He explains. The disciples from those families learn martial arts basics from a young age, so they don't even try that hard here. A realization dawns on Mujian. They're on a completely different level than the other recruits. Suddenly, a stir. All eyes turn to Mugyong as he awakens. Sitting up slowly, the boy asks, confused. Where am I? He then touches his head, still clearly dazed. But his eyes land on the 3 monks, and pure terror takes over. He scrambles backward as Mujin calls out, Don't worry. With his hands raised, Mujin says, Mugong explained everything. We understand what you've been through. You're traumatized and afraid of everyone. Mujin's mind raced, wondering just how much suffering this child had endured. And how could this happen in Shaolin? He pondered the dilemma. If they went directly to Master Heajong, Mugyong's own father could face backlash. But a determined glint appeared in his eye. There must be a way, he declared. Approaching gently, Mujin told him, I have an idea that can help you. Cautiously, the boy asked. You really want to help? Mujin affirmed. The answer is simple, he explained. Since those brats use their father's power to bully you, we'll report them directly to the top. To Master Heajong. Suspicion filled his eyes. Are you mocking me? He asked, trembling. He was terrified for his father's safety. Don't worry, Mujin assured him. I've already thought of that. You just need to become a true Shaolin disciple. Seeing the confusion, he clarified. A true disciple is one who officially joins the main Shaolin order. And since those clan, brats are all technically outsiders. They wouldn't dare mess with an official disciple. The gears started turning. Mugyong finally grasped what Mujin meant. At the same moment, Mugong also realized the sheer genius of this simple plan. But Mu-He still looked completely clueless, getting the gist of this wild proposal. Mujin lays it out. A mere clan disciple would never dare touch a true disciple. Then he admits, okay, the plan's not exactly foolproof. But Biop Gang's words about Shaolin's loyalty, that was worth a gamble. It was time to test that. Theory? Reaching out to Mugyong, he declares. It's not just Master Heajong. All of Shaolin will reject this blatant injustice. Across from them, Muhene and the crew waited for the kid's answer. Mujine prods him. Come on, say something. You scared you'll lose your shot at being a true disciple? Mugyong just stammered, his eyes glued to that offered hand. Mujin pressed on. How does that family even treat you? He asks if he wants his father slaving away for people like that. He keeps going, warning that inaction means his father will be Muai's personal servant. So, he asks, can you live with that? Finally grasping Mujin's hand, Mugyong vows. He'll do absolutely anything. As he helps him up, Mujin smirks. Excellent choice. Turning to the others, he announces, All right, everyone, time for phase 2 of the operation. Mugyong panicked, fearing he couldn't survive more beatings. But Mujin just says, Trust me, there's no secret trick. 3 days later, during the afternoon break, a few monks were loitering around. One of Mute's cronies pipes up. You sure our punching bag shows up today? Muai scoffs, confirming he threatened him, saying he'd snitch to his family if he bailed. His lackey adds, Good. Mu-He and Muan grin, saying their fists were getting bored. They joke that 2 days feels like an eternity for someone used to a daily beatdown. One of them idly wonders if they've spotted Mugyong with his new crew, like Mujine and Mui, and gets a quick confirmation. Another chimes in, saying even that arrogant Mugong was tagging along. Their conclusion, they just got more punching bags for practice. With a sneer, Mutai comments on his luck. Turns out he was just itching to give that punk Mujin a proper beatdown. His lackeys eagerly agree, saying the kid is always whining about something. Besides, they never liked Mugong's face anyway. They start reminiscing about the past, specifically that time they made him cry. And one vows he'll make him cry again, just nearby. Mujin dryly comments to Mugong, "Sounds like one of them has a problem with your face." Mugong finally gets why they always stared. With that, the crew strides forward. They head right for the bullies, and Mutai confronts them for not running away. One of the lackeys starts taunting Mujin. "Well, well," he sneers. "You must be feeling good." After beating up that total airhead, hearing the insult, Mujin nudges Mugong. Mugong steps up, telling one of them to come forward and get shut down for good. Muyel offers to take the first one. Mugong then claims the last one for himself, meaning Mujin will handle Mutai. But Mujin turns with another plan. "No," he says. "Mutai is all yours, Mugong." Mugong agrees, though with clear hesitation. Mujin asks if he remembers his lesson. He assures him he'll be fine, but Mugong still doubts if he can actually win. Approaching slowly, Mutai smirks. "Look at you, Mugyong. You've made friends." "I'm almost jealous," he says with sarcasm. The two groups lock eyes, tension crackling. Mutai breaks the silence, calling him a crybaby. Mugong promises to put him in his place. Stepping right up to him, Mutai sneers. He gets in his face, asking what he plans to do. He questions if Mugong really intends to fight. Was he just going to stand there, or would he finally fight back trembling? Mugong stammered, "I can't." But Mutai knew just how to push his buttons. He sneered, his threat sharp and cold. "I know what happens to your father." The mention of his father struck a nerve. In his mind, he heard Mujin's words. He remembered there was only one way. To free him, teach these thugs a lesson, and finally become a true Shaolin disciple. With newfound fire in his eyes, he roared, "Don't you dare!" He advanced, shouting, "Don't you dare lay a hand on my father." Surprised, Moi reacted, and threw a punch. Just then, Muyel blocked the strike. Muhi had to admit, the kid wasn't just some airhead. Grabbing Wan's fist, Mugong shocked him, with his raw power. Sensing the change, he knew his opponent wasn't just stronger, but different. Something had completely snapped inside of Mugong. A memory flashed through his mind, recalling a time he'd refused to help. Mujin had questioned his duty as a brother, asking if he was simply scared. He said, since Mugong finally agreed, the talk was over. But Mugong abruptly interrupted him. He denied it, demanding an answer. Mugong reminded him of their real topic, why he was always losing. Mujin explained, "Your chain fist is indeed fast and strong, but that's its only trick." Assuming a fighting stance, he issued a challenge. "Try and dodge this." Lunging with a punch, he watched Mugong barely evade. "Not bad," he smirked. "Now for round 2. Prepare to dodge this one as well." With a powerful shout, he readied himself to attack as Mugong focused to avoid it. But instead of the expected punch, he was met with a sneaky low kick. Rolling on the floor, Mugong yelped that he'd lied. Mujin just said no opponent, to simply let his opponent attack. He then reveals the secret is to deceive the enemy? Mujin thoughtfully agrees, admitting his opponent's blows are powerful and swift, but he notes how his stance gives away his every intention. And so Mugong argues he should just strike, with even greater power and speed, so no one can evade. Mujin half agrees, saying that logic works only if he were the most powerful man alive. But he's not. He recalls a story, citing the hero from the novel The Fall, of the Sinister faction, explaining that this Sinister faction warrior was the absolute strongest, with a technique so perfect it was unstoppable, even if you saw it coming, meaning until he becomes the undisputed best. That logic is completely useless. He advises, saying it's smarter to learn a few tricks, like faking out your rival in a game of rock, paper, scissors, back. To the fight, Mugong seizes Muon's fist, mocking him. "Is this all you've got?" He then declares that it's his turn to strike, announcing he'll use the first form of the chain fist, daring him to try and dodge. In his mind, Mugong considers the lesson on using a little deception, wondering if he finally gets it. He'd never considered it, always thinking it was cheap, but now he sees Mujin was right. So he offers to teach him something back, and Mujin asks what that could be. Warning, Mugong says not to assume that Muai and his buddies will be as easy as he was. Confused, Mujin doesn't get the comment. Then Mugong reveals he wasn't even fighting seriously. When the two of them faced off, he explains that in a real battle, foes will unleash their clan's clan arts and inner ki, guiding the others to a more private spot inside the temple. He declares that this area should be perfect. He explains that he didn't want any grown-ups watching him use his family's style, playing it safe. He tells Mule to stand guard, promising he's about to blow their minds. Taking the bait, Mujin asks him to show his stuff, and Mugong hopes this finally gets him the respect he deserves.
Focusing his ki, he begins to unveil his technique. With a powerful ki, he
unleashes his full power. Watching closely, Mujin sees that this technique is a far cry from when he just used the chain fist with raw power and speed. Looking deeper, he realizes that this energy isn't quite what he imagined, but it's still amazing for a kid Mugong's age. It all clicks. Now he gets why he warned it would be risky to write them off, since every strike makes the very air pop. He sensed the real showdown was coming. Muai and his boys were about to get serious, with all their martial arts training. But he halts his attack just before. It connects with Mule, showing off his immense control. He asks what he thinks of the power. Mujin admits it's incredible, easily making him the top kid here. But he points out that Mugong can't completely control his internal energy just yet. Thinking about the brawl again, Mujin figures that, in that case, the situation is doable. With that, he drops into a ready stance. For the enemy's assault, one lackey rushes in to strike. All right, here we go. As the goon closes in, Mujin notes that to properly wield inner strength,
one has to follow very specific forms and stances. In comparison, he knows that.
Beside Mugong's power, this punch was pathetic. A complete joke. And just as predicted, he evades the strike with absolute ease. Instantly analyzing the attack, Mujin recognizes the predictable form of the chain fist, making the moves obvious. In disbelief, the goon realizes his attack was casually sidestepped. He gets it now. Mujin's victory wasn't just a fluke. He starts backing away. But Mujin closes the distance instantly. A flurry of swift strikes rains down as he taunts. My turn now, isn't it? The lackey desperately raises his arms, shielding his face. Seeing the guard, Mujin scoffs. Only worried about your face. A punishing blow sinks into his gut. Meanwhile, Moi swings wildly at Muyel.
But he dodges and with a smooth motion, trips his foe, just like their last fight.
Mujin's sharp gaze misses nothing. He sees Mugong preparing a devastating blow for Muan, smashing into the ground. His fist creates a huge shockwave. Defeated, Muan can barely even move. Watching this unfold, Mutai is completely stunned by the sheer power. He starts to wonder, am I the villain here? His opponent, who acted so tough, now looked utterly broken before him. Shaking his head, he turns to check on the others. Mugong and Muyel had already wrapped up their fights. Their foes were so weak, they barely broke a sweat. The fight was over before it really began. But then, a sound makes Mujin worry about Mugyong. Mugong seemed fine, startled by the noise.
He questions what that could be, and sees Mugyong viciously pounding.
Muai into the dirt. He sprints over, yelling, "Stop it! The fight is over!" Seeing that look, a memory flashes. A sudden, painful memory returns to him. He finally understands the reason for that name. It seemed so familiar. The image of a boy
slamming his foe's face right into the ground. That memory burned in his mind.
That savage glare. The blood streaked across his face. And then Mujin knew. There was no doubt it was really him. He remembered. He recalled the book's absolute worst character, the villain with an unquenchable thirst for blood. And he realized this was Muyang, the dreaded blood monk, from one of his favorite childhood novels, Mujin. Couldn't recall everything, but one illustration was seared into his mind. That image showed a blood-soaked monk howling. He was screaming about the evil of humanity that only his hands could purify with blood. And the scene
unfolding before him mirrored that same horrifying Mugyong from the story.
He panicked, wondering what in the world he had just done. His only goal was boosting the boy's self-esteem. But instead, he'd created a monster. Realizing the grave danger, he knew that if this wasn't stopped, Moai could actually die. Running, he screamed for Mule's help to jump into the fray. Grabbing the boy, together, the two held him back while Mugyong shrieked, "Let go, Moai will answer!" For his sins, finally restrained, panting, with his fists dripping blood. Everyone stared at Moai's unconscious body. Mujin knew the situation could have been so much worse. Kneeling, the rage left Mugyong, who began to cry. Seeing this, Mujin finally understood. He realized the boy wasn't yet the blood monk. The character in the book was portrayed as just a madman, with no explanation ever offered as to how he fell so far. He must have suffered an insane amount of torment. Until one day, he finally broke. Suddenly, Bub!
Gang appeared in the hall and asked just what was happening here. Turning
around, Mujin and Muyel knew they were cornered. Approaching, Biopang demanded they explain themselves right now. Pointing at the boys sprawled on the ground, he asked Mujin, "What in the world is going on?" Then he turned to Mugyong and questioned him, but the kid just hesitated. Mujin fired back. Didn't you just tell us to explain calling them out by name, bub? Gang listed every single one of them. Then, Mujin rolled Mugyong onto his back,
forcing the Inquisitor to see the proof. Shocked by this move, Bayup Gang
asked, "What are you doing?" Mujin replied. "Just a moment, please look at Mugyong's body." Seeing the boy's back covered in dark bruises, Bayup Gang was stunned. His expression hardened. With a grave tone, he said, "Tell me what happened." Mujin explained that those bruises were from 2 whole months of beatings Mugyong had suffered. He continued, saying that today, they called him over to beat him again, which is exactly why they had to step in. Bayup Gang questioned, "Is all of that true?" Turning to the others, he asked, "Is that the truth?" He ordered Mui and Muan to get on their feet, rushing over. Other monks arrived at the scene, asking what all the screaming was about. Shaking on the ground, the 2 bullies couldn't even answer, taking in the scene. One of the monks stared at Mu's unconscious form. He then yelled, "What in the world happened here?" Turning to Mugyong, Bayup Gang asked him to tell his
side of the story. Hesitating, the poor kid began to tremble, unsure
what to do. Placing a hand on his shoulder, Mujin said, "Just tell him the truth." He encouraged him, stating, "Brother Bop Gang is a very fair person," and added, "There's no need to be afraid." With a heavy heart, Mugyong confessed Mujin was right. He began to list his tormentors, Muai, Muhui, and Muan, who had bullied him for 2 long months. His voice trembled as the emotional dam finally broke. Tears streamed down his face as he laid his suffering bare. Every painful detail came pouring out. The other monks watched as Mujin and Muyel waited for Inquisitor Bayup Gang's judgment. Though shaken, Mugyong pleaded his case with clarity. The entire truth was now before the Inquisitor. Mujin seized the moment, reminding him of his promise. "You said Shaolin never turns its back on a disciple in need," he declared. "It is my duty to stand by him." But Bayup Gang countered calmly. "Those children are also disciples of Shaolin," Mujin challenged him. "And can you call them that?"
Those who use fear and threats to rule others, are they truly disciples? Is that
the great spirit of Shaolin? Bayup Gang conceded the point. "You are not wrong." Just then, Hyungsung arrived on the scene. He announced an official investigation would begin. But, of course, there was a catch. The accusation would only stick if their story was true. The Arhat Hall director has decreed that if this tale proves to be factual, those boys will no longer be welcome here. They will be cast out as disciples, Mujin stated confidently. "I trust the investigation will be both fair and just." But Hyensong interrupted with a sneer. "And who goes this far against mere children? Isn't the goal of martial arts simply to subdue your foe, not crush them?" He pointed dramatically at Mue's unconscious form. At that sight, Mugyong collapsed to his knees. He raised a trembling hand in surrender. "It was my fault. I take the blame." But Mujin moved to shield him. "No, the responsibility is mine. I let my anger over their cruelty get the better of me." Mugyong grabbed his arm, frantic. "Mujin, don't you dare take the blame for me." But Mujin's expression was like stone. "And all of this started with me." The gravity of his choice hit him. If he betrayed Mugyong now, there was no telling when he'd suddenly snap and become the infamous bloody monk. Better to become their strongest ally. Bub Gang explained that this was a place for practicing a unique form of Buddhist meditation. He then gave Mujin the rules. For the next 7 days, Mujin Han must stay here without speaking a word. This was all part of his ascetic training. Announcing their arrival, he gestured to a cave where the boy would serve. His punishment? Inside. The rules were simple but harsh. He had to sit upright, face the stone wall, and meditate. He couldn't turn, not even for a meal, or to sleep. Mujin agreed, entering the cave to begin his reflection. He always assumed Gyeong's novels all took place in the same world. But now, a character from another tale had just appeared in his. He knew. The demonic master's return and the sinister faction's fall happened in the same universe. The 2 heroes were from the same era, but their paths rarely crossed due to their regions. But he remembered something from the second half of a book. The new monk from the Neo Shaolin Temple appears. His actions could affect other storylines. A chilling thought crept in. Was this a butterfly effect of his own making? Was he meddling with the destinies of other protagonists to get stronger? He would need allies. Problem was, he only recalled them from their youth. It had been over a decade since he'd even read the books. And while he knew the general plot, he couldn't quite remember the crucial details. Now, Mujin wondered if the story of the Neo Shaolin would even begin. The characters start to bond, and everything gets hopelessly tangled, now involved with Mugyong, the future blood monk. He knows he must simply watch how the story unfolds. It's by facing the blood monk that the main character of Return of the Demonic Master finally finds enlightenment. But if the blood monk is taken out too soon, that hero might never get his power up. This entire timeline is a disaster. The web of fate is too complex, and Mujin has no clue where to start. Outside, Biop Gang watches him in total silence. He notes the boy's intense focus on his punishment, completely absorbed. It seems incredible to him that
A 12-year-old has such discipline, considering his unique techniques and
the sheer talent he's already shown. He thinks this boy might be the real deal. Meanwhile, in a different place, Headmaster Haiyan Moon lets out a deep sigh. He laments, saying he failed to uphold his principles. But Hai Zhang takes the blame for not managing the situation. Changing the subject, Hienan asks the disciple for a full report on what he found. Reporting. Hai Zhang states that every novice in the temple was questioned, and their testimonies were
all consistent. They confirmed Mugong was a constant target of bullying.
This could leave a terrible stain on the Shaolin name, casting a dark shadow over the Arhat Hall. Just then, Biap Gang arrives, announcing himself as a disciple of the second generation, and is granted permission to enter. Haiyan Song then asks Haiyan Moon if he saw the newcomer's hands. The master cook confirms that he saw them. One look at Mugyong's hands and face was all they needed to know he was the one who pummeled Muai. Commenting, Hyunmin says that this entire situation might be a blessing in disguise, something that could finally fix this whole mess, and that
without Mujin, the outcome could have been far worse. A heavy silence fell between them.
The three men stood, lost in thought for a moment. Finally, Bai Gang asked to speak. He requested the master's permission to weigh in on the matter, and it was granted. Master, he began, the issue isn't about placing blame on one person. We are all guilty, he declared, suggesting that instead of regret, they must ensure this never happens again. Curious, the headmaster asked if he had a plan in mind. With a grim look, Bob Gang said, "This disaster happened because their training is far too easy." He explained that the bullying was only possible because the children had way too much energy. The only solution was training, so intense that they would become too exhausted to even think of causing trouble. Baop Gang requested permission to proceed with his brutal new regimen. Hayanun accepted. He left the training to him and Hayajong, stating he'd be busy handling the fallout in the days to come. He also declared that the three guilty children would face severe punishment, and he would first pay a visit to the discipline hall, returning to the cave. Bayap Gang swore to the master that he would whip the children into shape.
Peeking inside, he was impressed. Mujin hadn't moved an inch in almost
an hour and a half. He started to enter, but Bei Gang stopped himself, changing his mind. He decided he would just check on him in the morning, telling Mujin to keep meditating while he handled his food and water. From within the cave, the young monk remained completely silent. As soon as he was alone, Mujin smirked. That guy is finally gone. Having spent 7 years in the special forces, he had learned to perfectly sense a person's presence into the mountains. He collapsed onto the harsh ground, wondering how to survive 7 long days without a single source of protein. Lying there, he desperately asked how long it had been since he'd had meat. His mind drifted to that glorious fried chicken he devoured just before this ordeal. That perfectly crispy batter. That juicy meat. As his hunger intensified, his mind screamed for one thing: meat. Gazing at the cave ceiling, he pleaded with the Mai, heavens, for a sign. And then it hit him. He turned towards the cave's entrance. He didn't need a sign. He needed to hunt. Not far off, a girl sprinted through the trees as a white rabbit fled before her, leaping. The creature flew right towards a rope trap. The young huntress watched, perfectly hidden, concealed within the dense foliage. The girl watched her plan unfold. But then, a blur, Mujin snatched the rabbit right out of the air, triumphantly declaring, "Protein acquired." He rejoiced over the meaty prize he'd secured. From her hiding spot, the girl could only stare at the scene in utter disbelief. Meanwhile, in the Yichuan prefecture, a stone's throw from the great Shaolin temple, destiny was weaving another thread. A group of Shaolin's finest worked diligently to uncover vital information. By asking for aid from the locals, they began to grasp the gravity of the situation, discovering the dark deeds that had plagued the area. Their investigation soon led them to the gates of the Seo Merchant Guild, sworn protectors of commerce, and they were invited in. At their head was Hiego, Shaolin's chief of external affairs, who walked with purpose. A man rushed to meet them at the entrance,
bowing as he welcomed them inside. "A pleasure," he began. "My name is Moonyong Seo, leader of this organization, and Muai's father." Bowing with deep respect, he proclaimed,
It is an immense honor to meet the Grandmaster of the 5 Unmatched Fists. Behind the monks, Muai is cowering, shaking like a leaf. Seo's voice booms, asking why his precious son is in such a state. He demands an immediate explanation. Heigl addresses Seo, leader of the so-called merchant protectors. Stepping forward, he explains that Mutai's condition is a direct result of his own actions. The boy was a bully, pure and simple. Instead of training his mind and body, outraged by the accusation, Seo tries to argue, but the monk cuts him off. He continues, saying their little investigation revealed so much more. They found out that the so-called merchants are nothing more than common bandits.
Shaking down the local community, expressing his shock, Hegel says he never thought a clan from the honored Shaolin sect could be involved in this filth.
He commands his disciples to act now, shut the place down, and seal these thugs' powers. In response, Seo gives his own command, ordering his men to stop the monks immediately. He charges forward, attacking the man with a furious barrage of strikes. He finishes with a heavy punch to the chest, but standing over the fallen men. The monk notes that their powers are gone. Now powerless, he demands they make things right. He orders them to give back all the wealth they stole from the innocent people. Facing one another, the defeated men know the situation is a complete disaster. They have absolutely no idea what to do. Hegel approaches the crowd, asking if Bang is there. An older man steps out from the group. He identifies himself as Bang, asking how he might be of service. Recognizing him, Hegel exclaims, "You are from the temple."
With a humble bow, Hegel reveals that the child Muai had been tormenting was his son.
Mu Young. With a heavy heart, the man asks, "My son, he was suffering from bullying." With conviction, he declares no apology can fix this. But that's a whole other story. Deep in the forest, Musheni halts, a thought striking him. He spots a hilariously shoddy trap on the ground. Who on earth made this, he wonders. Taking a closer look, he realizes with horror. It's a pathetic imitation of his own work, an absolute butchering of his design. He questions himself. Is some amateur trying to copy me? Could there be another soul wandering these peaks? Just then, the young monk hears a rustle. A sound erupts from the nearby bushes. He spins around, and they lock eyes.
Through the leaves, 2 figures freeze. A moment of pure, awkward silence.
Suddenly, the girl bolts, making a run for it. But Mujeni yells, "I see you."
Panicked, she pleads for him to just wait. As she dashes away, she hopes she lost him.
But with a sudden lunge, Mujin closes the distance. He finally snags her. They go down in a heap. The two tumble right into the foliage. When the world stops spinning, he realizes his predicament. He has landed directly on top of a girl. She quickly apologizes. "That wasn't my intent." Scrambling up, Mujin offers his own apology. A little later, the girl is devouring roasted meat. He can't help but comment on her appetite. "You must have been starving," he notes dryly. "Trying to catch that rabbit yourself? I see." Sitting by the fire, she asks, "Aren't monks, forbidden from eating meat?" Mujin gives a masterfully vague reply. "It's complicated. Don't sweat the details." He then asks how she got here. After all, this is Shaolin Temple territory. Her gaze falls, and a heavy silence fills the air. A flashback she's begging her father not to abandon her. A painful memory indeed. Another memory surfaces. Why does everyone hate me? Is it a crime just to exist, sensing the sudden mood killer he's unleashed? Mujin decides it's time for a swift subject change. He leans in conspiratorially, asking for a favor. "Let's keep this between us," he requests. The whole hunting and eating rabbits thing. Curious, the girl asks. Is it because monks can't eat meat? But he just vaguely mentions his reasons. Instead, he offers to help her get home, which totally catches her by surprise. He says a shirtless but influential monk will be passing by here shortly. All she has to do is ask him for help. She's confused. "How do you know that?" Mujin smirks. "My monk senses are tingling." He tells her what to do next. She simply needs to wait patiently. At the cave entrance, as Bupgang arrives, as he appears, she approaches him. The girl quickly asks for assistance. He's startled. "What's an outsider doing here?" She says she lost her group. Bupgang immediately agrees. "Don't worry, I'll help you get home." But then, his entire expression changes. His face gets serious. He points. "By any chance, did you happen to see a small boy around here?" Inside the cave, Mujin feels a chill. Taking the hint, she plays dumb. The girl replies, "I was too scared to go near the cave, so I didn't see anyone go in or out." A perfect lie. Bupgang assumes Mujin must be busy meditating and decides to return later. He invites her to join him. They can walk down the mountain together. It's the quickest way to get her home. She gratefully accepts his offer. As they walk, he asks for her name. She replies, "My name is Siola Ryu." Deep inside the cave, Mujin's ears twitch. He listens carefully and confirms it. The other man is finally gone. He collapses, saying, "Man, I'm tired. What was that little girl's name again?" He just shrugs it off, figuring her name doesn't really matter anyway, elsewhere. Mugyong greets Bayup Gang. He asks if the man needed anything. Beigang began. There is something to discuss. Regarding your father, he informed Mugyong the merchant protectors. Run by his old tormentor's father had been officially shut down. He also mentioned the Shaolin had found a new, much safer post for his dad, somewhere far away. He then told the boy to stop worrying about worldly matters and focus on becoming a true disciple, with a new fire in his eyes. Mugyong faced the elder. The young monk then promised to give it his absolute all. He vowed to do whatever was needed to earn the title of true disciple. On day 4, Mujin's special forces training kicked in, helping him easily hunt for food. He recalled cooking over a campfire for the girl, a rookie mistake that could have given away his position. After that, he moved all his activities to a hidden cave, leaving absolutely no traces. He ensured every spot was clean after he was done, to leave no evidence behind. He would roast his meals in a covered clay pit, trapping the smoke and smell. It was his first taste of meat here, a glorious meal that provided him with some much-needed protein. Mujin awakens, long before the morning bell, assuming a meditative pose, but this wasn't for enlightenment. He sensed an approaching presence near the cave. Beigang arrives and is immediately impressed to find Mujin already awake and deep in meditation. He walks in, thinking the boy repented all night. He places down a bamboo canteen and a small pouch of food on the ground. He's amazed Mujin hasn't broken his focus despite his arrival. Bayup Gang leaves the supplies for him. Only when the monk's footsteps fade does Mujin dare to glance over. He quickly grabs the rations,
Thinking they were taking this a bit far, expecting kids to survive on that for a
week. He only gets water and some meditation snacks once a day, but he sources the other nutrients he needs by hunting, a skill he has already mastered in this routine. Day 6 dawns in the forest. Inside his cave, he starts his warm-up exercises, as the rule is to use protein and energy right away. While moving, he felt something click during his exercise. His breathing felt like the inhale and exhale technique. To test it, he started mixing void training with gymnastic moves, creating his own unique method. Mujin felt the power coursing through his body from this, but he'd learn more later. In truth, what he had discovered was a type of fluid cultivation. Meditation training has concluded, and that he can finally stand. Mujin asks if this means he's allowed to talk, and the man confirms it. He then warns that morning practice will start soon and tells him to get back to the training area. On the way, Mujin asks what happened with Mugyong's case. Bayup Gang explains that they had investigated Muai's clan and found
corruption within the SEO trade protectors. Because of this, the clan
was officially disbanded. Their martial arts were sealed, and Mugyong's dad
was assigned a new post elsewhere. He also tells him the training level
was raised over the last week, so to be fair to the other students, Mujin must adopt the Shaolin training style. Mujin boldly suggests he will just increase his own training regimen while continuing to use his own style. Bayup Gang simply answers, "We shall see." See? They finally reach the Arhat Hall, training grounds, where Muyel immediately sprints over to welcome him. Mujin asks how they've all been holding up. Muyel confesses it's been absolute torture. Mugyong whines he was about to give up, but Mugong just boasts it was a total breeze for him. The young monk then turns to his friends, but Master Hyejong announces that morning training begins now, ordering everyone into formation. A disciple drops a heavy bag onto the ground, and Mujin wonders what's inside. The other boys immediately recognize the sandbags and start strapping them to their bodies. The master orders them to grab the bags and get back in their positions, making Mujin realize they'd upped the intensity. Other than Mujin's return, this was the same old morning drill as always, with the training now even harder. The kids were already completely drenched in sweat, so Mujin, naturally, used the sandbags as free weights for his own training. The sandbags are unstable, and the grip is far from perfect. But he's not aiming to be a pro bodybuilder, so they were just right. Two disciples observe that Mujin is
acting like nothing's different, just doing everything his own way. Bayup Gang
walks toward Mujin, and the other boys grin, thinking he's about to get disciplined. But approaching Mujin, Bayup Gang reminds him that the training is now much harder. He can see Mujin is pushing himself way harder than the rest of the pack. Then, he feels an immense energy flowing from the monk, and Bayup Gang recognizes it. This is fluid cultivation, a state that is only achievable when one has grown. Used to gathering ki, the art of collecting energy while moving. Techniques that use chai gathered this way allow a person to break past their normal physical limits. Feats like shattering boulders with a single punch. It even became possible to soar through the heavens or move faster than the eye could see. But one thing broke the scene. Mujin scoffed, clearly unimpressed. He was so over calisthenics. It was about time they brought out the real equipment. He started repping tricep extensions with the sandbags. While everyone else was dying, Mujin was the only one treating this. Like a modern-day gym session? Feeling that satisfying pump, the boy grinned, pleased with his gains. The others just stared, completely baffled. Was this guy for real? What planet was he from? But Baep saw something deeper in Mujin's madness. He watched the boy's form intently. That was fluid cultivation. He wondered when the kid mastered the technique. The master approached him, asking for a moment. He took a seat and beckoned for Mujin to follow him. Master Hejung confirmed Baep's suspicion. He instantly recognized the advanced cultivation method. How long had Mujin been hiding this power? The boy recalled his secret training in the cave, but knew he couldn't snitch on himself. So he cooked up a little. White lie? It was his first time ever, he claimed. He spun a quick tale about his clan's secret breathing arts and how good it felt to work out again. He explained he just mixed his clan's method with the basic breathing exercise, and this was the result. The excuse left the two masters utterly speechless. Hejung pondered this. Fluid cultivation was a stage only, achievable after advancing in void training. Baep added that while void training can be learned in just a few, 4 years, only legends could perform fluid cultivation. That is why after learning the path of the void, most disciples learn the next lessons in mental training. Why spend 12 hours a day grinding for one legendary skill, when they could spend a fraction of that learning a dozen other mental arts to control their chi? But if someone actually learned the void and fluid cultivation in a few days, like Mujin, their inner chi would grow at a completely broken pace. Haiyang wonders what kind of monster the boy will become with more advanced arts if he mastered this so easily. The old master schools his expression, trying to ask Mujin a question. So you can use fluid cultivation anytime you wish. Mujin simply replies, I can only do it using my clan's special training methods. The young monk then asks to return to practice, and Haijong dismisses him. He sprints back to the courtyard. The masters sigh, thinking they got
worked up over nothing. Mujin turns to Mugyong, asking to continue.
He then spots the others, asking if they're doing the forelimb extension stretches, which Moyel confirms they are. Moyel explains the other two were curious, so he showed them. Mugong admits Moyel is a pretty good teacher and that he feels great after practice, even if it hurts. Mujin remembers showing Moyel the basics and is stunned by how fast he picked it up. He hadn't paid much attention to this boy, who isn't even mentioned in Jiang's novels. But he now sees his technique is unique. It's both skilled and incredibly simple. He wonders if that's why he never rose. He probably can't even find his own meridians. Mujin looks over at Mugong. He'll figure that out later. He decides. He addresses the boy, asking about his progress. Has Muyel taught him anything Mujin wants a demonstration to see? What he's actually learned so far? Mugong gasps out the counts for each movement. He's getting lots of encouragement. They begin the standard military exercise. One of them whines. Is my side supposed to be screaming at me like this? Mujin fixes another's posture, reminding Mugong to relax his fists and for Mugyong to stretch his arm out more. He announces the next part is breathing. The boys form a line, following the steady count for the breathing drill. Mugong thinks, finally, an easy one. Everyone seems to be doing fine. Then, he sees Muyel, recalling how much time the boy trained with Mujin. He shows some truly shocking flexibility. The other monks are completely amazed. Mujin thinks of Mul, the boy who cost him his chance to be a true disciple. He sizes him up, skilled but an airhead. Then he recalls Mugyong, who beat up Mui. Mugong decides that even if they are all impressive, he's determined to easily overtake every single one. Mujian hoists the heavy new sandbags for his
routine morning workout. In any spare moment, he secretly works on cultivating
his own inner ki. He also guides the other monks through their stretches, making sure their backs stay straight. Two of the monks are whispering, one of Champagne. Them asks if his friend has noticed a change in Mujin. He asks if the boy's shoulders don't seem a bit wider now. His friend says he can't really tell. Maybe it's because of all those weird exercises he's always doing. And then, the 10th day finally arrived. Master tells the novices it's time for a new lesson, the art of inner energy training. He then calls for a disciple to demonstrate the fundamental exercise. The master explains the first form, showing how the inner force is drawn from the chi center, or dantian. He then instructs them to divide that energy, sending it to the shoulders and collarbone. Mujin concentrates, gathering the ki in his core before raising it up. He recalls the very specific instruction for a 7-to-3 ratio. The boy takes the final stance of the chain link fist technique, and with a single, swift motion, he executes the form. A new sensation floods Mujin's hand. He can feel inner power fortifying his entire body. He finally understands why they were warned against sending all power to one side. It's all for perfect balance. Then it clicks. Of course, you have to distribute energy to the rest of the body. Master Haijong explains that for proper technique, one must also send ki to the lower body. Mujin knew he was right, but this sparks a new idea. An insight flashes through his mind. The energy shouldn't just flow to the arms, but the legs too, requiring complete, full-body mastery. He observes his arm. This technique is far more profound than he first imagined. He then wonders how much focused training is needed to wield this power in the heat of battle. For now, he observes the other monks struggling to practice. Muyel moves like a clumsy puppet. Am I doing this right? He whines. Mujin approaches and tells his friend to hold on. He asks what's wrong, and the boy admits he completely forgot the sequence. The young monk describes the wrong flow of meridians, but Mujin corrects him. The right sequence, but fumbles it. He gets the energy's direction wrong again. Mujin steps in to correct him, with a reminder that he's right-handed. Finally, Muyel has a breakthrough while Mujin observes him in silence. He tells the boy to forget the names of the meridians and just gather the inner force to a single point in his belly. After that, Mujin instructs him to guide the energy to a new point, and then to his shoulder. Muyel performs the movement and cheers that it's much simpler that way. Mujin advises him to ask if he gets lost again, sensing he'll probably forget, and just like that, the young monk clumsily starts, then immediately asks where the energy goes next. Mujin realizes his friend has the memory of a goldfish. Master H. Jang and the Defies, second-generation disciples, taught a different fundamental form each day. After that, they started working with each child based on their own individual needs. This grueling training continued for 70 days, right up to this very moment. One by one, the young monks, including Mujin, mastered the 10 sides, fundamental forms of the chain-link fist. Mugong warns a boy doing push-ups. That 20 seconds are already up. The kid immediately gets off the floor. Mujin turns and asks if it's time for some squats. During the intense morning training, Biup Gang watches everyone giving it their all. Suddenly, he notices someone breathing heavily. His gaze shifts to a small group, doing squats with sandbags. He is then stunned by the number of sandbags Mujin is carrying. The boy's strength and muscle are unreal for his age. His physical power is on another level compared to the other novices. Biup Gang reflects that the boy achieved all in just 2 short months. Was his own path truly the right one? He recalled Mujin's strange advice about exercise and his unique training. Sitting alone, he dared to wonder, are the Shaolin methods actually flawed? Master Hyansong appeared, asking why. He lingered after training had ended. Biup Gang rose to greet him respectfully, but he could tell something was amiss with the master's demeanor. Hyansong advised sharing his troubles, saying they become lighter that way. He asked again, and Biup Gang confessed. His worries were centered on Mujin. He admitted, I just don't get him. Soon, Biup Gang found Mujin, telling him that Master Hyansong wanted a word. The other monks instantly gossiped. What did that kid do this time? Just go apologize already. Biup Gang urged him along, and a confused Mujin followed him. Inside, Mujin's mind raced. Did I do something wrong without knowing? What could the master of Arhat Hall possibly want with a guy like me? Hyansong considered Mujin's rapid growth. It was almost unbelievable. He sensed the boy's immense potential. But Biup Gang's concerns piqued his interest. So, the master had ordered Biup Gang to summon the boy directly? Hyansong believed this was not an issue that could be solved secondhand. It was far better to meet Mujin himself and get to the heart of the matter. Mujin now stood before the master, who sat silently at the table. Looking at the intense man, he wondered what exactly was going on here. Was I really called here just for this? A staring contest I should be training? He felt it wasn't a normal gaze. The master was looking right through him. Model, being sized up from head to toe. The boy felt like every fiber of his being was under review, so, of course, he flexed. I'm not even in peak condition yet, he declared. Hyansong deadpanned. What are you doing? Mujin shot back. Just striking a little pose, the master noted. It has been quite some time, hasn't it? The boy agreed. Not since they last spoke during the incident. Mujin's mind flashed back to the fight. He asked if this summons was related, but with a calm sip of tea, Hyansong said. No, I just needed to see with my own eyes. Hyansong continued that having seen him, he was now certain of one thing. Certain of what Mujin asked, curious, the master praised his rapid development, far beyond the other rookies, and that the rumors about his monstrous strength were absolutely true. But that wasn't the only reason for this meeting. Is your growth due to your clan's unique training? He asked. The boy immediately saw the road ahead. This was going to be a headache. They would demand he use the Shaolin way, Mujin challenged. Did you want to see if my training is superior to the Shaolin style? But he denied it.
Hyeon-song explained Shaolin isn't such a rigid and inflexible place.
In fact, he had a proposal. The young monk recalled Master Haijong screaming about training and asked what he meant. The master then explained that the true
reason Shaolin endured for 1,000 years was its ability to adapt, Mujin admitted.
I still don't get it. So Hyeon-song made him an incredible offer. If the boy can prove his clan's techniques are worthy, they'll adopt them. He meant those very peculiar training methods. Mujin was floored. He wondered what this truly meant. Who would truly embrace his training methods? As master of the Arhat Hall, Hyeon-song was a monk dedicated to enlightenment, one willing to make bold choices for the future of Shaolin. Introducing. Mujin's training was a massive gamble, so it was wiser to test it first, on the young disciples of the Arhat Hall. If things went wrong, he alone would be punished. But he felt it was a worthy risk to advance. Shaolin's legendary legacy, after all. If this method was truly effective, it could fundamentally strengthen the temple's power. But Mujin flatly refused. He demanded, "Why does it have to be me?" Master Hyeon-song's gaze turned to ice. He roared back, asking, "Who else could it be?" The boy argued that there
were over 70 rookies, and he had his own training to focus on. Besides,
he pointed out, the others already saw him as a freak and would never accept. His lead? Music. In truth, leading the rookies would help integrate him into Shaolin. But he had no desire to babysit those brats. So Mujin countered. If they were so desperate to test his methods, he had conditions. Later, the young monks slept peacefully in their rooms. Suddenly, the boys were jolted awake by a shout. "Get up!" They rushed out, and one groggily asked if it was time for morning practice, since the bell hadn't rung. A sharp voice ordered them to the training grounds. You didn't come to Shaolin to sleep. The monks stood outside, confused by the commotion. That's when they saw Mujin standing in the courtyard with Master Haijong and Baeop Gang. The master declared that the reason for this abrupt wake-up call,
all thanks to some new warm-up drills being added to their morning routine.
But that's not all. Master Haijong announces that from this day forward, morning,
training will be led by Mujin. Naturally, the other rookies were not.
Thrilled by this development, he was hardly the most popular guy. But with this new authority, Mujin knew he couldn't afford to seem weak. He snaps to attention, flipping his instructor switch. Starting today, he declares, we train my clan's way. With a stern voice, he continues, right now, I am not your peer. Everyone here will address me as instructor. Watching from a distance, Master Haijong cracks a smile. That little rascal is full of surprises. Even Baeop Gang can see the fire in.
The young boys gaze. Mutai scoffs, completely unimpressed by the display.
The others jeer at the command. Why should we listen to a guy like him? Mujin calmly asks. You think this is funny? He challenges them, wondering if they'll still be laughing when his training is done. The rookies take a step back.
The new instructor calls out anyone who has an issue with his new position,
telling the jesters to step forward. As the group closes in, Mujin ups the stakes. If I even hesitate for a second, he vows, I will give up this role and rejoin you as just another disciple. Mujin plants himself in the yard's center, encircled by his challengers. He coolly asks, is this everyone? He then declares he will face them all at once, assuming a battle stance.
At his signal, the monks charge him. They unleash a simultaneous assault, a storm of fists heading his way. Suddenly, they halt. Wait, where'd he go?
Just then, Mujin reappears in a crouch, among them, and questions. Is that all? You've got... Then, in a flash, he materializes behind one of the attackers. He traps him in a painful arm lock, while the others just yell, do something. Mujin forms his chain-link fist and strikes the two monks before him. Just like that, his attackers are all down for the count. He scans the rest of the crowd and asks, anyone else want some? The disciples stay dead, silent. And Mujin says, I was serious, pointing a finger. He declares,
as of right now, I am in charge of training, and everyone here will call me
instructor. He immediately starts counting for push-ups, warning that if a single stomach grazes the ground, they will get double sandbags. The terrified young monks obey, and Mujin barks out his next command, that on two, they must extend their arms and rise. Watching the scene, Baeop Gang thinks about how talented that little rascal is. He assumes that Mujin must have had some teaching experience back home, as the training unfolds perfectly, but he
couldn't manage 70 kids by himself. So he promoted Mugyong, Mugong, and Muyu
into his assistant instructors. The new assistants go around fixing the posture of the others, letting Mujin properly supervise and train the whole group. He figures that teaching other kids his age might boost Mugong's low self-esteem. Baeop Gang, a man more soldier than monk, realized Mujin's
method was absolutely ideal. He reflects on how these children were just
fooling around a moment ago. But now trained so earnestly, Bob Gang tells Mujin to go easy on them at first, then get tough if they misbehave, while the boy just screams. Has everyone learned their lesson? And even though the young novices saw results in no time. Their bodies hardened, muscles taking shape. As they improved, Mujin found the monks. He asked them, "Did you manage to get what I requested?" They'd seen the effects of his insane training methods. The boy had earned their complete trust. They confirmed his special order was ready. Mujin erupts with joy. His new toys had finally arrived. This was the prize. He'd negotiated with the headmaster for training the young disciples. Behold, a full weightlifting set with a bench, a bar, and plates, but he quickly noted that except for the bar, it was all wood. But hey, this primitive gym would work. He could always use sandbags for weight. Besides, with his 3 little helpers, instructing 70 kids was a huge drain. It was seriously cutting into his own gains. His personal progress was stalling. So, this whole setup was his personal request. A wicked grin spreads across his face. The thought of doing the 3 powerlifts right here in Shaolin, this, he knew, would make everyone beasts. Through relentless effort, he broke his limits. Actually, he smashed through several of them. The bar setup weighed nearly 90 kilograms. And at just 13, Mujin's growth was insane. His growth was explosive. He starts his set. He pumps out squats with the bar on his back. He flexes an arm, feeling the raw power. He quickly calculates his 3-lift total. It should be 230 kilograms now. Flexing his muscles, he thinks he could probably hit 300 for a 1-rep max. And so, the brutal training continued. The seasons changed from fall to winter, and winter gave way to the green of spring. 20 of the novices finally washed out. They were the ones who couldn't handle the grind, failing to learn the basics within a year. Master Hyejong gives Hyung the report. Nearly 50 children were still standing. Triple the previous record, Hyeonsong roared with laughter, declaring it was all thanks to Mujin. The master became his staunchest ally. He pleaded, "Can we please get more equipment for our legendary Arad Hall?" Having witnessed the incredible results of Mujin's methods, he now craved as much equipment as he could possibly get. But alas, no matter the Shaolin Temple's grand scale, some things were simply out of reach due to the budget. So, Hyeonsong reflected that after 50 years of seeking enlightenment, this admission test couldn't arrive fast enough. It was the final trial the novices faced to be selected as true disciples. If the test proved the power of their new training methods, Arad Hall would receive all the equipment they coveted. That year, Mujin hit his growth spurt, shooting up over 10 centimeters, and his big 3-lift total hit 400
kilograms for 12 repetitions. Only 400 kilos after a year and 9 months might sound
slow to some, but Mujin was not some bodybuilder. He was a true martial artist.
After all, excessive muscle can become an obstacle to a martial artist's flow.
So he only sculpted his body with just enough mass. His physique now rivaled that of a celebrity famous for his perfect build. Mujin was no longer built like the trainer, Gang Yuk Choi. He was now chiseled like a true martial artist, with every muscle perfectly defined, at the boy's peak condition. Hyeonsong finally ventured out of Arad Hall. He presented himself before the head abbot, formally announcing the admission test, now just 5 days away, and was welcomed inside. The abbot began. "I have already received word of the news that you brought nearly all the children forward for the admission test." Hyeonsong humbly attributed the success to the profound virtue of the abbot himself. The abbot remarked, "You must be feeling with absolute certainty," and Hyeonsong confirms, "My confidence is well-founded." He bows deeply, stating, "I truly believe this admission test will be unlike any we have seen before." That was Hyeonshin, the very abbot of Shaolin.
High-ranking masters from all halls gathered at Arhat Hall for the event.
The admission trial. Because of Mujin, 49 children came to face the test. Now, 42 remain after a few left. Everyone assembled just to witness this incredible result for themselves. Hyeonsong agrees with another elder, saying, "It would be wrong to keep this amazing sight to ourselves." A monk questions, "Is this high number of remaining kids thanks to Master Yi's Hyeonsong's unusual kindness?" But Hegel strongly disagrees. Hegel, the chief of external affairs, explains, "The master himself told me this batch of disciples is simply on another level." He then invites him. "See for yourself," the other monk is shocked by the powerful physique of the children about to take the test, he remarks. "By their aura alone, they seem like second-generation disciples." And Hegel just confirms, "This proves my point," he adds, "and that is why I am so very confident." Hyeonsong takes his place before everyone and says, Thank you for making time in your busy schedules to attend. He announces, it will be swift as there are many children, so we will begin at once. Mujin advises Mugong, don't you be afraid. And he tells Mugyong, don't you be nervous. He then looks to Muyel, but ultimately says nothing. He faces the group and tells them, go have fun. A young monk runs eagerly toward end. The challenge? This test is watched by the future heads of each great hall.
Who will pick a child as their own model disciple? Usually the second generation.
Disciples like to challenge the newcomers, just a little test of their skills. But sometimes they get a real shock. This kid has already exchanged 20 blows
And still looks fresh. The abbot notes the children's level is astounding. But Hyeon-song just smirks. He says they haven't seen half of it.
He asks the abbot to wait a bit longer before making any judgments. Hyeon-song shows zero anxiety, revealing his absolute faith in the kids. The bell chimes. The next disciple is called the novice, Mul. Mujin pulls his friend aside. You remember what I told you, Mul confirms. Go out there, take it easy, and just have fun. A confident smile spreads across his face. Taking his position in the courtyard, he announces that he is ready. The duel begins. Mul surges forward, aiming to land the first strike. His senior opponent observes him, realizing just how many forms this kid has already perfected. In that case, it's time to move to the next phase. The senior disciple decides to test Mul's adaptability with his techniques. Seeing an opening, the boy attacks. With a swift spin, the senior disciple tries to counter, but Mul dodges and launches a strike of his own. The monk barely blocks the hit, wondering how on earth a novice can be so fast. Regardless, he won't be outdone. He prepares a punch and closes in, sure, of his victory. But the boy nimbly ducks right under the blow, the masters. Watching from the veranda are stunned. One of them shouts in surprise. That boy's movement is unreal. It's like pure animal instinct, yet he's able to react to that instinct with perfect form and amazing flexibility. Hegel then tells his disciple Bopian to watch. He needs to witness this moment. The master declares, this child will be his next chosen disciple. Under his training, the boy will easily master
all 5 legendary Shaolin fists. The challenge ends. Mujin can't help but admire Mule's talent.
That incredible flexibility is a serious weapon. He remembers making Mule drill the forms, transitioning from one style to the next, without a single thought for the flow. Because of that, every movement and every surge of inner strength was burned directly into his muscle memory. The abbot asks Hyeonong how he managed to train these children to such an unbelievable level. He just smirks. You haven't seen anything yet. Now, Mujin approaches Mugong with some advice. Don't get tense. The boy readies himself for the fight.
Tense, who's tense? He yells back. The masters watching are in disbelief.
Can that kid really be just a novice? The second generation disciple sizes up his foe.
He stares at the boy's imposing frame. He's shocked by his opponent's height. Mugong
thinks back on 2 years of hellish training. Everything he endured was for this day. The challenge begins, and he charges forward. Mugyong anxiously asks Mujin for his thoughts.
How do you think he'll do? Mujin explains. That while Mugong had immense strength, he
was hopelessly stiff. But his insane work ethic helped him power right through that weakness. This unique combination of training forged Mugong into a high-damage tank. He strikes. The older disciple is thrown backward. He's staggered by the pure force of the impact. He knows he can't match that inner strength with his own raw power. He has a new plan. He decides to unleash an energy surge, just to see what happens next. The monk
concentrates his aura into one powerful fist. He launches a direct counterattack,
aimed straight for Mugong's chest. The opponent throws a devastating punch, but the boy is already moving to evade, in complete shock. From the veranda, the masters watch the Vansois' unfolding battle. One of them notes that the kid isn't just strong, but also clever. He's using feints, the only one to do so, fighting on equal ground. Just then, Master Haidam approaches the other disciples, commenting, not bad at all, is he? They greet him as the master asks if that particular child caught their eye. Haidam sees how the boy strives to remove all unnecessary movement. That's proof of immense work. At this rate, the young monk could very well become the new face of Shaolin, aware that all eyes are now on him. Mugong gets ready to show off, but his confidence makes him careless, and he takes a clean punch to the gut. From their perch, Master Hayadam and the disciples watch the outcome in silence. A master says he relies too much on flash. Hayadam agrees that the boy still has a lot to learn.
After the match, Mujin tells Mugong, don't beat yourself up. Everyone slips.
Up sometimes. Then Mugyong is called for the next bout. Mujin watches him, a serious look crossing his face. Mugyong prepares for this opponent, who is more dangerous than his last. He attacks with a non-stop fluid sequence of powerful techniques. An older disciple questions how many
forms he's possibly learned, as if his knowledge has no end. Mujin watches carefully, hoping his friend can keep up this flawless pace. Aside from one small error at the start, the fight is going perfectly. But a problem
is starting to appear. As the challenge wore on, Mugyong started to get lost in the thrill of the fight. One of the masters declares that the challenge is over, but the boy ignores the call and keeps on attacking. His opponent, he clenches his fist, a strange new joy coursing through him. He then completely gives himself over to the pleasure of Battle Mujin, recognizes his friend's berserker state. As a terrifying bloodlust takes over, Mujin screams for him to break free, snap out of it. Meanwhile, on a rooftop, a man sips from a gourd, amused. He thought all the noise meant the abbot
was having a party, but it must be the admission test. He watches and challenge.
Agile monk evade a larger foe. He muses that the big guy would be
a perfect fit for Haidam. But then, his gaze locks onto a monk blocking a hit.
With a grin. Now this was interesting. The rooftop observer's eyes light up. That one, he declares. He's perfect. His mind made up. He leaps from the roof, soaring towards the action below. That fighter is mine, down in the yard. A monk is slammed violently onto the ground. His foe prepares to use the 18 hands of Dharma technique. From a balcony, the abbot and other masters
watch the scene unfold. The blow hits the earth, causing a huge shockwave.
But a hand suddenly intercepts the arm, stopping the attack cold. The man from the rooftop appears right in the middle of the fight, holding the aggressor while casually taking a drink. One of the monks recognizes him. Brother, Hayaguan, he shouts. And the man confirms. From the balcony, Haidam scolds him. For daring to drink inside the temple, Hayaguan just tosses the gourd up to him.
Brother Haidam, don't play such jokes. Haidam catches the gourd, and upon
realizing it contains only water, awkwardly continues his speech, saying that while they admire hard work, there are certain lines that can't be crossed. Hayaguan turns to the crowd and announces, I felt that I should be the one to take that kid in. Boy, a master comments to his peer, admitting the boy is indeed capable. But he adds, someone has to teach him how to control that ferocious bloodlust. He suggests Hagen, the leader of the feared Death Demon Brigade. The brigade is the only group in all of Shaolin free from the vow not to kill, tasked with protecting people from true evil. The abbot agrees it might be for the best. Perhaps under Hagen's guidance, the young man could finally tame his violent impulses. Hagen approaches Mugyong, patting his head. Well, look at that. Looks like you're one of us now. The young monk flinches from the touch. Hagen is amused. Well, well, he says. I finally found a disciple wilder than me. After claiming Mugyong as his student, he just leaps back over the wall, completely losing interest in the exam. The bizarre situation leaves everyone momentarily stunned. But soon enough, the tension dies down and the tests go on. The disciple running the exam sighs, wondering what kind of monster he
would face next. Then, novice Mujin is called to step forward. Mugong
studies this new opponent, noting that while he looks unassuming, he also has the powerful physique of a brawler. Up on the balcony, one of the masters tells the abbot that if he had to choose, he'd pick that boy as the best disciple. Without a single moment of hesitation, the abbot asks him to explain why. The master clarifies his point. He says Mugyong might one day master all of Shaolin's techniques, but he declares Mujin is the child who could truly take Shaolin to a new level. The young man prepares himself for the fight.
In a quick flashback, Bayab-gang finds Mujin meditating and calls out his name.
He'd hit a wall with his training techniques, so he tried to find answers in meditation. But Bayab-gang just had to question him, asking about the skills he'd already perfected. Mujin clarified his real problem. He was trying to solve an issue with his cultivation, so the master asked if he had finally reached the path of emptiness. He replied, not yet, because I've been having some trouble.
Controlling my ki in certain moments? Bayab-gang asked when this occurred.
The young monk's answer was bizarre. It happens when he's sleeping or not breathing. Bayab-gang was completely baffled. He asked, how is that even a problem? Mujin explained that there are several moments when a person stops breathing, like when they are eating or drinking. The master finally understood the issue. The concern was how to gather chi during those specific times. With arms crossed, Bayab-gang said. Geniuses are weird. I never would have thought of a problem like that. Then, an idea hit him. He turned around and quickly asked, Mujin, have you heard of the iron shirt? The boy called it a low-class technique, used by common thugs and bandits. Bayab-gang explained that wasn't the full story. The iron shirt was a famous foundational Shaolin art for hardening the body, but it was eventually forgotten. He said that the art simply wasn't effective against elite masters, as it couldn't block their powerful attacks. Bayab-gang then revealed the hidden truth. The world believes the iron shirt just serves to harden a person's skin, but that is only half of the truth. The real technique, he revealed, involves absorbing qi directly through the skin. Mujin was shocked by this revelation. The master said the public version came from a disciple who failed to master it. A revelation suddenly strikes the young man. If he truly masters this technique, he could absorb qi constantly. Even while eating or sleeping, he imagines adding fluid cultivation, and the synergy would be explosive. He realizes the secret is qi absorption. The skin hardening is just a byproduct, making it seem almost worthless. But he pauses, a new idea taking root. The young man has a spark of genius. What if he merged Shaolin's foundation with his knowledge of modern gymnastics?
With his fist clenched in excitement, he sees its true, hidden potential.
He has finally found a real use for it. To be a third-generation disciple, one must master 3 martial arts. But Mujin had already surpassed that. He mastered each one to the 10th level. Being a prodigy, he learned too fast.
Quickly running out of things to learn, he had managed to get by with gymnastics,
filling the gaps in his training. But for the future, he would need to forge a style all his own. Beopgang watches his disciple, a belief in his eyes. If anyone could find a new way, it was Mujin. Back in the past, Mujin enthusiastically begs his master to teach him the iron shirt technique. Now, in the present, Muyel spots Mujin in the courtyard, asking Mugong, "What now?"
Mugong just sighs, saying he has always been this eccentric. Muyel agrees.
For Mujin, this was perfectly normal. The young monk repeatedly strikes himself, trying to understand the feeling of impact, to truly absorb the iron shirt technique. He then concentrates, figuring out how to make the absorbed qi work for him.
His opponent is stunned by the amount of qi pouring from a mere novice.
He combines the qi from his cultivation and uses it in his own unique way, announcing, "Time to unveil my new martial arts collaboration." Meanwhile, the abbot thinks that particular phrase, taking Shaolin to the next level, is usually said about someone else. In the distance, a master and his pupil finally make their grand appearance, arriving at the Arhat Hall. The master apologizes, wanting to witness this specific test. But Bobjian calmly responds, "It was nothing." He coolly continues, saying that carrying him just made the journey longer,
which he considered a slightly extended stroll. An elder calls them to come closer.
Bobjian warns the old man, however, that he won't see much from that. Far away, the master claims he's too inexperienced to truly judge a disciple. He then insists it would be better for Bobjian to observe and decide for him. From the crowd, they hear Mujin's name called to the stage, struck by the boy's flawless form. The old master wonders if it's the famed fluid, cultivation. Mugong readies for a fight. As the battle starts, Mujine instantly closes the distance to his foe. Mugong is shocked by the sheer explosive speed, asking, "What in the world?" Are that child's techniques? Muhini merges the 9 palace steps technique with the legendary Guanyin palm. Mugong sees the heart center fist approach, bracing himself. He shifts his body to withstand the incoming heavy blow. Mujin blends the 9 palace steps and the autumn wind leg to fortify his base. He then uses the Guanyin palm for his core and an explosive power boost. To finish, he adds the chain link fist's first form to bolster his shoulders, fusing the core essence of all his arts. The impact is immense. His opponent is thrown backward, exposing his unique hybrid style. Mujin presses on to launch his next assault. Mugong stares at his own hands. He has never felt a shock like this in 10 years of blocking blows. Bracing himself once more, he sees the second strike hurtling in. The attack closes in. Mugong moves sideways, dodging the fist, but the blow was just a faint. Mujin stuns him with a lightning-fast finger jab. Then, he throws a real punch, met squarely by Mugong's own fist. Mugong is stunned by the sheer force of his rival's grip. No longer holding back, Mujin unleashes a furious torrent of strikes. Observing the clash, the Grandmaster
wonders how he generates so much power with such minimal fighting experience.
He's sticking only to the fundamentals of fist, palm, leg, and finger strikes. His attacks are deceptively simple, yet with basic upper and lower body forms, he's completely overwhelming him. Then, the master sees the truth. He isn't just moving to the next technique. He's weaving a combination of basic skills into something new. He realizes the boy is walking the path to becoming a legend. He questions if he's on the same road he once traveled. Turning to his disciple, he calls out his name, Bupion, asking for aid. He asks to be taken to the training field's very center. A smile plays
on Mujin's lips, thrilled to be in the Mirim. He recalls nearly 2 long years of
training, remembering he always held back. He could never reveal his true power. But now, he can finally go all out without a single worry in a true fight. He feels the tense thrill of this clash, but also the sheer joy of unleashing
everything he has painstakingly learned. As his senses heighten, the world
seems to crawl to a halt around him. But then he spots his opponent retreating, wondering why he was stepping back, utterly lost. Mujin spins around, trying to grasp what was going on. He sees the crowd parting like the red sea, making way for Bobkian, who carries the master. From the balcony, the abbot and Hayatam gasp at the newcomer's arrival. Leaping down into the courtyard, they greet Master Heiyang Wang, calling it an honor. With a deep bow of respect, all the disciples exit, leaving Mujin clueless. Just who is that guy, he wondered. The abbot heard Master Hyung Wang apologize for crashing the test, but he knew. The man must have his reasons, Master Hyung explained himself, saying he came to ask the boy a single question, which only confused Mujin more. Then, he asks the young man to take off all his clothes. Though he wasn't totally thrilled with his own build, Mujin stripped down. After all, he had nothing to hide. The crowd immediately started whispering about his physique, calling it perfect for a martial artist. The master then asked if he used special training for the 6 core Shaolin forms. Stunned, Mujin thought, how could he possibly know, considering the sheer number of Shaolin techniques available? He asked why Mujin chose that specific method, instead of learning any others. The young man admitted that he wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, so he found what worked for him and stuck with it. Besides, he wasn't the Mujin from the original story. He seriously doubted he could master advanced skills with the same genius as Mugyong, so he made his call. He created his own hybrid style, combining basic forms into one brutally effective method. He just needed to learn how to move ki through his body. In the perfect ratios, he focused. To handle that immense power and its amplified ki, he forged his body, making it strong enough to endure. Watching this, the master realized what he saw. Mastery of the autumn wind step, and using extreme discipline to suppress his overwhelming power. The conclusion was that this young man had, in essence, created his very own martial art. This left Mujin completely stunned. He then informed the abbot of his wish to take Mujin as Byopkian's disciple. Master Hyung Wang was then asked about taking him on as a 3rd-generation disciple. Later that same night, Mujin's mind was in turmoil, utterly confused by everything. Meanwhile, inside the master's hall, Mugong couldn't help but wonder, what's so special about that guy? He thought back, remembering the master didn't seem to be in good shape, let alone a typical Shaolin practitioner. And he couldn't recall that name from anywhere in the Gyeongga universe. Just then, the abbot entered. Mugong quickly asked the abbot if he knew Master Hyung Wang, but the temple leader simply said he did not. In another place, the abbot told Mujin he was summoned for some questions, and to learn things he needed to know. He revealed these matters concerned the venerable Hyung Wang, his new master. The abbot began his tale. He said, at one time, that man was called the greatest warrior in the entire world. Looking back, he said when his own generation were mere 2nd disciples. Master Hyung Wang had already reached a stunning peak, at only 32 years old. Back then, he was on the very brink of surpassing the previous generation's level, and the whole temple believed he would be the world's greatest within just 10 years. So Mujin had to ask, how could someone leaving them in this tragic state? The abbot reveals the grim reason. It all began with the demonic cult and their vicious attack. Hearing of them, the young man's eyes widen in shock. The abbot continues his tale. He recounts a brief period of peace. Then, the demonic cult descended. Sworn to defend all innocent life, the Shaolin monks marched off to war. But battle is a cruel, unforgiving place, deemed too vital for Shaolin's future. The pride of their next generation, Master Hyung Wang was forbidden to fight. In his place, the powerful masters of the Gong generation and the first disciples of the Gwung generation marched into combat. Sensing weakness, the demonic cult made their move. Their most elite squad was sent to a Shaolin guarded by only the master. The young disciples remained as well, but at that time, the master was among the greatest warriors alive. The elite squad could not touch him. However, the 2nd and 3rd generation, disciples left behind at the temple were no match for the invaders. With no hope against such foes, the young monks were overwhelmed, and the enemy used this weakness to their vile advantage. During the chaos, an assassin lunged at Master Hyung Wang. He knew his disciples were in peril. Instantly, he spun around to face them, vaulting over the temple rooftops. The master raced to reach them in time, but the enemy's assault was savage. Wounded, Hyung Wang shielded the students. He became a human wall for them. He swore the invaders would all die here. He threw himself into the slaughter. Again and again, he fought to save them. With every desperate, furious exchange, he sustained more and more fatal wounds. The abbot lamented, his voice heavy with regret. If only they had fallen instead of the master, their fate would have been so much better. Mujin then asked if these old wounds were the root of the master's condition. With a heavy heart, the abbot confirmed it. The The young man's eyes lit up with a brilliant idea. All he needed was a cure, and he would provide it. Stunned, the abbot couldn't believe his ears. Could this boy truly heal their revered master? Another master scoffed at the very notion. Even the legendary great elixir was useless, he declared. What makes you think you can do any better? Mujin calmly clarified the situation. A full recovery of the master's power and body was a feat beyond possibility. But he stated with absolute confidence, he could at the very least get him walking again. Master Hyansong suddenly chimed in. He mentioned that Mujin might have heard something from the director about Brother Bayap Gang's famously ruined knees. The abbot's eyes widened. The same methods used on Bayap Gang? Could they work for him? Hyansong simply gave a firm, telling nod. The story of Bayap Gang's miraculous recovery was already becoming a legend, alongside the training that skyrocketed the disciples' abilities. Is all of this truly possible? The abbot asked. The master simply gestured to the disciples. Today's test should be all the proof you need. He pressed further. His hope rekindled. Could that same training restore the master's body? But Mujin shook his head, stating that his own skills would not be enough. To begin, he explained calmly, I'm going to need a few things. The abbot slammed his hand on the table. As leader of this temple, he roared, Shaolin will provide anything you require. Anything to restore our master, all martial. Artists seek to strengthen their bodies, their muscles and bones, forcing every faction to endlessly search for a way to control it. Countless methods had been attempted, from acupuncture to mystical arts, even resorting to the breaking and resetting of children's bones. Shaolin had tried everything to cure Hyung, Wang, but every attempt failed, only making his condition worse. Safely reforming the body takes time and immense effort, but the admission test proved Mujin's methods were shockingly effective. The abbot saw this with his own eyes, a flicker of hope that this boy could save Master Yi. Hyung Wang, firm in his belief, the abbot declares that if more of the Yi'atid, great elixir is what's needed, he will make the ultimate sacrifice. He proclaims he will sever his own arm for it, like the great Haga did centuries ago. But that wasn't what Mujin required at all. He asks if Shaolin has techniques for Thunder Chi and Supreme Yang Chi. Confused, the abbot and Master Hyansong shared a look at this strange question. The temple leader confirms that such arts exist, but asks why. Soon after, Mujin is led into a chamber where the abbot and masters were waiting. Present was Hyung, the head of the Hall of Discipline, and Bayop Gang's own master. Beside him, Brother Haidam, a master of the immovable diamond body, was also in attendance, taking it in. Mujin says he heard the details and guessed that Yang Gong must be Bayop Gang's master. Stepping up, the two masters vow to do whatever is needed to help their brother. Master Hyung Wang. Mujin then rolls up his sleeve, making a bizarre request. He asks that they strike him with the weakest divine thunder palm right on his arm. Hyung questions what he could possibly mean. Mujin starts to explain his idea. I'm guessing you thought we were blasting a blockage in his meridian. But Mujin clarifies the real goal. He doesn't need a destructive blast, just the most delicate, tiny spark. All right, I'll try it, Hyung agrees. He then touches Mujin's arm, unleashing a weak divine thunder palm. So, how was that? He asks casually. Then Hyung asks with a straight face. Are we trying to fry the master? Mujin thinks. That was way too much. He firmly states that the master could never withstand that raw power. That kind of force is pure overkill. We need to cut it by more than half. Hyung scoffs. Is that a challenge? He confidently puffs out his chest. Of course, I can do it, he boasts, as Mujin tries to urge caution. Hyung Gong just shouts, I can do it, but to properly treat the master, they'd need physiotherapy gear, equipment this world has never seen. The elder is much more fragile than Beigang, so Mujin introduces a brilliant idea. He watches Hyung Gong try once more. This time, a truly faint thunder palm. That's it, Mujin says. Perfect. He was aiming for something precise, recreating a tool from a physio clinic. He was, in fact, trying to build an electrical stimulation therapy unit. Hyung Gong is completely bewildered. So you want chai flowing in the muscles? Mujin just gives him a knowing nod. That's exactly right, he confirms. He explains that a faint thunder chi gently stimulates all the muscles. This boosts activity and blood flow, forcing them to contract and grow. Hyung Gong is amazed, just by letting chi flow, that's even possible. He asks how long the treatment will take. With a nod, Hayadam agrees he will need to assess Master Hyung Wang personally, but the outcome should be clear in about 1 month. Preparing. To elaborate, Mujin begins to explain exactly what Master Hayadam's role will be. He notes that just like Master Hyung, it will demand the use of the Supreme, Yangi, and Hayadam consents to help. With that settled, the master moves and projects his palm with his full strength directly at Mujin.
But as the
blast hits, Mujin stumbles back, warning him that's not the right way at all. He tells him not to extend his arm, stressing that this particular technique must be far, far weaker. Demonstrating, Mujin shows that for the Supreme. Yangi, one only has to aim the palm in the general direction, much like how the sun shines on the world. Instead of blasting the energy out, it needs to simply flow gently from the palm of his hand. After this small adjustment, Mujin feels the temperature and declares that it's now perfect. Using an analogy, he explains that while Hyung is like an electrical stimulation therapy machine, Hyedam's purpose would be quite different. He'd be more like an infrared therapy machine. Hyedam's job is to maintain the form. For about half an hour straight, the heat will warm the skin, ease muscle fatigue,
and boost circulation while purifying the muscles and joints. As Mujin goes
on, Hyedam abruptly cuts in with a blunt question. Will that even work? Confused, Mujin asks him to clarify, and the master gets to the point. Can these weird techniques truly cure our master? He acknowledges Mujin's wins, admitting his work with the Bayop gang and Arhat Hall was impressive, but he insists that the master's illness is far more grave. Then Hadum scoffs. And how? Can we trust a method known only to this young man? Understanding their distrust, Mujin knew he was no amateur. He was a master in his own right, and he was here to help. Time to unveil his credentials. It becomes clear Mujin's past life wasn't just as a personal trainer, but a state-certified physical therapist. His expertise ran deep, covering yoga, weight training, and all other forms of exercise, plus diet and nutrition. This obsession was born from a need to recover from his own devastating injury. That effort not only healed him, it remade his entire life. A memory surfaces of a younger Ganguk, cramming for that very exam. A virtuoso in training, nutrition, yoga, Pilates, and rehabilitation. He was undeniably the perfect person for this impossible task. If anyone in this
era stood a chance of diagnosing and treating Hyung Wang, that person was
Mujin. Returning to the present, he decides to drop the bomb, admitting he was shocked by the master's awful condition. Stating his position firmly, he says he has mastered these healing techniques and will dedicate everything to the Grandmaster's recovery. If you dislike my methods, find another way. The masters reflect on this. All known methods had already failed spectacularly. This, however, was a completely new approach. They realized if the boys' bizarre techniques could actually help the Grandmaster, it was their last glimmer of hope. Even Hyedam wouldn't discard that hope so easily. He asks for confirmation. Will this take about a month? Mujin coolly replies. Yes. And with that, the decision was made. They would follow his instructions for 1 month, but the elder adds a chilling condition. If there is no improvement, you will pay the price for your crimes. But calmly, the young man declared, I understand now, a faint smile on his lips. Mujin agreed. This meant they had to refine their control. He then challenged them to another round. Let us begin again. And just like that, Hedam realized something profound. The man wasn't bluffing. His words held weight. After another grueling session, the training ended. The abbot sent Mujin on his way. He needed rest for the day to come. The abbot then asked, Your thoughts, Hyung admitted. It was quite difficult. Releasing such a faint, controlled energy? Turning to Hyedam, he added thoughtfully. This has uses far beyond healing. I never imagined using the techniques this way. The abbot then began to explain. The supreme Yangqi method is not so different, from how it's used in martial arts to govern one's own inner disposition. For instance, masters of secret yin arts are known for their cold, detached nature. While masters of yang and fire arts often possess a dangerously fiery temper, Shaolin arts use Yangqi to fight evil. But this is only possible when fire and metal energies are perfectly balanced. But Mujin's idea was different. He wasn't using Chi's explosive force. Instead, he sought a gentle, constant stream to cultivate inner tranquility. Finally, Hayatam saw that at their level of power,
things could easily spiral out of control. He'd never thought to use Chi inwardly
as a method to temper himself. He promptly left to begin his own training. Inspired, Hyung decided to follow his lead. The abbot mused to himself with a smile.
Once they master this unique method, it could be taught to all our disciples.
It will be a great boon to fire Chi users. The very next day, outside a pavilion, Biop Kan greeted the 2 arriving masters. Honored masters, what brings you here today? They gave a simple, direct answer. It is about our master, Yanshin explained. We came because we believe Mujin is the one who can finally heal him. Our master, even if just a little. In bed, Hyung Wang's eyes widened when he heard Mujin's name. After all, Hyanshin had already explained everything to them. He told them of the events in the Arhat Hall and Mujin's incredible feats. With all eyes on him, Mujin stepped forward. First, an examination, he announced. Then we begin the treatment. But a brief analysis revealed a grim reality. This was far worse than he had imagined. Turning, he asked, "How long has the master been confined to his bed?" His calf muscles were nearly gone. Addressing the patient, Mujin said, "Master, please let me know if you feel pain." He then began applying pressure to his back. The master bore it without a sound, so he pressed down with even greater force. A thought crossed his mind. Are all these Shaolin monks masochists first B-up gang, and now the master? They never admit to feeling pain, he announced. The full treatment starts now. He warmed the body with a damp towel. Then he started acupressure, working, to release the built-up tension. The first step was the forelimb extension. Technique, moving his ankles and legs to ease the hardened muscles. The master's body was like a fragile vase, one that the slightest force could crack. This required an extremely delicate touch and an intense level of focus. But Mujin refused to show any sign of how incredibly exhausting it was.
After an hour of pure concentration, the others could only watch in awe.
They were stunned by his dedication and his absolute unwavering focus. But then, a flicker of despair began to cloud the master healer's eyes. Without even realizing it, in his eyes' reflection, a memory of a grandfather walking away appears. He's holding a small child's hand. In that memory, a little boy calls out, "Grandfather," and his solemn promise echoes, "I will find a cure, no matter what." In the quiet, Hyang
Wang remains still in his bed. Watching Mujin, he can't help but wonder, what weighs so heavily on this young disciple? Looking closer, he perceives the
deep sorrow etched upon his face. Finally, a heavy sigh escapes Mujin. Standing up, he announces that his part of the day's music treatment is complete, confirming it is now the master's turn, just as they practiced the night before. The infrared and electrical stimulation therapies proceed without a hitch. That night, after the session, Mujin moves his personal belongings from Arhat Hall to Hyung Wang's quarters. As he settles into his new bed, he silently celebrates escaping that room full of sweaty, bald monks. But alas, he discovers he will still need to sleep in that same room to watch, over Master Yang Wang. So much for dreaming of a room all to himself. He simply resolves to get some sleep. As he lies there, he considers how bad the master's condition really is, wondering if he has been trapped by this pain and discomfort. All these long years, the grim thought brings back memories of his grandfather, and he realizes how much he misses him. In a flashback, a young gangyuk massages his grandfather's leg, asking if it feels better. He hears the reply, "Yes, because you have a magic touch." Reassuringly, the boy tells him, "It doesn't hurt anymore. You can relax now." Then with pure determination, he declares, "I will study hard to find out how to relieve you of this pain." Smiling proudly, his grandfather encourages him. "Study hard," he says. "I believe in you. I can't wait to see the man my grandson will become." In a fading memory, Gangguk supports his grandfather tethered to a cold IV stand. The scene dissolves into smoke, the slow burn of incense at a funeral altar. The young man finally breaks. His grandmother offers comfort, but he only cries harder. "I never did anything," he chokes out. "I never did anything for him." Besides a few pathetic massages, useless, that's what he was. His grandmother's voice echoes from the past. "So, which college will you go to?" Gangguk's reply was firm. "I'm not interested in college. I've got a different plan, his books."
Weren't for exams, but for physical training and therapy for seniors. Then, a poster.
For the armed forces caught his eye. A wild idea sparked. "You know what? Maybe I'll join the special forces." Dressed sharply in his new uniform, Gang Yak beamed at his grandmother. "I made it, I finally have a stable job." Taking her hands, he made a vow. "My mission is to take care of you, from now on," just as Grandpa would have wanted. But home became a lonely place for her. "Won't you come by today?" she'd ask. The answer was always the same.
"We have training." Deep in a jungle, he pushed himself harder, repeating his mantra.
"I'm doing what Grandpa would have wanted." He raised a determined fist to the sky. He would protect her, no matter the cost. With his face covered in grime, his focus was absolute, his mind only on her. Days before his promotion, an officer strode towards him. "Lieutenant Choi Gang." The call was urgent. Then came the words that shattered his world. Before his grandmother's memorial, he heard a colleague's quiet words of pity. "There's nothing we could do." Citing protocol, the officer states, "We can only grant 3 days off since she was not your biological mother." He's instructed to fulfill his duty and return at once for an ultra-secret mission, back on the trail. He pushes onward through the dense forest. The squad continues its ascent, up the treacherous slope. Suddenly, his footing slips, and he loses his balance, tumbling down. In his mind's eye, the young man sees the figures of his grandparents. He gently asks his grandfather, "Are you feeling any better? Then, is it too late for another massage?" He laments, "I wish I had done more for you." His grandfather's hand gently caresses him.
My grandson has a magic touch. I could never truly relax without it.
Tears stream down Mujin's sleeping face, a soft smile appearing in his dream. The morning light begins to fill the room. Entering, Baopan discovers Hyungwang watching Mujin, who murmurs, "I'm not crying." The young disciple
Approaches his master. What should we do? Still observing. Hyung.
Wang keeps his gaze on the sleeping boy. Lying still, Mujin whispers, "I miss them," asking them to leave him be. Hyungwang understands. This is a struggle within his heart. Seeing the boy's deep sorrow, he finally realizes why the young man is so determined to treat his illness. He offers a quiet prayer. "May Buddha be with the boy." Then with a kind smile, he says, "If you want, you can call me Grandpa instead of Master. No need for formalities." Startled, Mujin asks as he wipes his eyes, "Did I hear you correctly?" The old man's words baffled him. "Master," he asks, "are you feeling unwell?"
This sudden kindness felt deeply suspicious. He knew he had no choice but to obey.
Scratching his head in utter confusion, he mumbled, "Yes, Master, Grandpa?" Instantly, the other masters erupted in fury. "How dare you address the venerable one?" they roared. "With such disrespect." But he simply explained, it was an order. Young Wang just bellowed with laughter. "It's all right. This only annoyed the other two. The young man has my full permission," he declared. Still chuckling, he added, "It's been a very long time since I've had this much fun. In the chaos, Mujin just watched the scene unfold quietly. Can we please resume my treatment?" His request was surprising, but it also put the old master at ease. Then one of them declared that the proper time had finally arrived. It was time to cut Mujin's hair, leaving him completely horrified. Trying to justify the sudden order, Hyeonchin explained that while it wasn't overly long, by their standards, it was time for a trim. Hatem added that they'd kept him busy, and they would continue the treatment, while he went to get his haircut. So Mujin frantically tore through a room, full of scrolls, searching desperately, but the answer he needed wasn't there. Yelling in frustration, he couldn't believe he could find nothing to help save himself. He desperately needed a historical precedent, any loophole he could find, as an excuse to protect his glorious hair. But there was nothing. Annoyed, he fumed about all the effort he'd put into it. He recalled asking a master why monks keep their hair so short, and was told it was to cut ties with the secular world. The master had explained that every single cut served as a firm reminder of their path to enlightenment. Mujin then asked if it was just a symbol. The master confirmed this, explaining that even Bodhidharma and the Buddha himself did so.
They were walking the very same path. He declared it was the very first step, on the path to break the cycle of suffering. A truly admirable tradition. But back in the present,
Mujin couldn't care less about tradition. He grumbled it was way too harsh and kept searching. He collapsed, whining that he never asked to come to this stupid Shaolin temple.
all he did was read a novel and pass out. Next thing he knew, he was here then. He froze.
How in the world did he end up in this place? He racked his brain, trying to remember.
Flashes of a hospital, the gym, a live stream, and finally, that Shaolin novel he was reading.
The one he read right before he slept. But wait, that memory of the hospital hit him like a truck. The doctor's grim diagnosis echoed in his ears. Stress-induced baldness. The doctor warned him that he might lose every single strand. He grabbed his head in sheer, utter despair. As the awful memory flooded back, he ran frantically. A fresh wave of humiliation washed over him. On top of the doctor's doomsday warning, he'd have to shave his head clean anyway. He recalled the master's profound lecture about how shaving one's hair was a symbol of severing all ties with the secular world. But Mujin thought, cutting ties with the world doesn't have to be about hair, right? A mischievous grin spread across his face. He needed to do something no one in this era would even dream of. That was it. He just had to prove he'd cut ties with this world in his own modern way. And with that, he dashed out. The next morning, an air of peace settled over the temple. That is, until a disciple entered with a box. He announced that training was back on. Yanshin immediately asked if the tools, the scissors and razor, hadn't been delivered. The disciple confirmed they had indeed arrived. With that settled, the master turned to Mujin. He asked why his hair remained untouched. Mujin simply replied, "But I did cut it." The abbot's jaw nearly hit the floor, wondering how that could even be called a haircut. He recalls the old teaching, to cut one's hair is to sever ties with the secular world. He figures this is a much better way, to show it Defiantly, he says. No one would see this haircut and think I'm
Still part of the normal world. He even explains how he's shaved.
the Buddha symbol to honor him with his own unique style. He asks proudly, isn't the concept admirable, despite the modern look? Hien and Bopjin remain stone-faced, completely unimpressed by his logic. Young Wang, however, finds it brilliant, chuckling that the intent behind it matters far more than any outdated rule. Just then, Hyegal arrives, at the entrance, asking for permission to come inside. Upon entering, he immediately blurts, what is that hair? He was, after all, sent to cut it. Mujin explains that in order to sever his worldly connections and honor Buddha, he concluded this style was perfect, and his grandfather
Had even approved, scolding him. Hyegal states, hair is a symbol of worldly.
desire. Cutting it is the first step on the path to true enlightenment. With a look of pure innocence, Mujin replies, that's exactly why I cut it. The master retorts that the hair left still shows his attachment to the world. Mujin fires back. From what I recall, the great Buddha didn't originally stop at just his hair. He continues, much to the master's shock. If the point is to show you face the pain of others, to truly help them, then shouldn't all body hair be gone? At this, Hyegal and Hyung glance, down at their very own beards. Mujin smirks, asking, shouldn't you shave their entire faces? He points out that the temple screens clearly depict their founder, Bodhidharma. And guess what? Only the top of his head is shaved. The rest is all there, faced with solid proof. He argues the real point isn't the haircut. It's about severing ties with the worldly realm. The method shouldn't matter. Stunned, the masters actually stop to think. They recall the images and realize Bodhidharma did, in fact, only shave the top, musing it over. They admit that technically. Mujin did shave some hair, and he even added a Buddha mark. Plus, that style would get him laughed out of the normal world. Turning to Hyung Wang asks for his final verdict. Was he planning on shaving that glorious beard? Cornered, Hyung caves, declaring, if his hair never grows back, you can allow it. With a triumphant grin, Mujin's style gets the official stamp of approval. And since Hyung would rather die than lose his beard, the hairstyle was permanent. With that chaos settled, training began at the crack of dawn. Marching forward, with the other disciples. Bai-Up Gang finally spots Mujin and roars, what in heavens is that on your head? Unfazed, Mujin chirps. Master Hyung said it was fine. Bai-Up Gang's jaw nearly hit the floor. The Inquisitor eyed him suspiciously. The master actually approved that he thought it was a miracle Mujin wasn't punished.
Shaking his head, Bai-Up Gang relents and just orders the training to start.
With even the fearsome Bai-Up Gang giving a pass, the other disciples' minds began to whirl with possibilities. Sure, they sought enlightenment, but they were still young. Many craved a little style, a little bit of attention. To them, Mujin's bold new look was the beginning of a monastic fashion revolution. Sneaking up, Mugong calls out to Mujin in a hushed tone. He asks, I need a haircut too. How did you manage to get out of it? Mujin replies, I could tell you, but I doubt you have my kind of luck. Before Hayatam, Mugong pleads his case. My hair is a symbol of Buddha's will, with a flourish. He proudly declares, as long as I prove I'm on the path to enlightenment, there is no need to shave my glorious head. In response, the masters just stare him down. Calmly, Hayatam summons an attendant. Bayomi appears in an instant. As Bomi grabs him, Mugong protests, but the order is absolute. Hayatam says, fine, I'll shave it myself. Back to the treatment. Mujin saw that Yang Wang's condition was critical. His whole body needed a major overhaul. But doing it all at once would be impossible. The strain would be too much. So he came up with a clever plan. He designed a custom workout routine. It would divide the treatment, letting each part of the body recover. One day for lower legs, another for upper. Then a day for his waist and hips. And finally one for shoulders and arms. Yonggong and Haidam followed suit. But since Mujin wasn't the official temple doctor, just a Shaolin disciple, he had to say his goodbyes for now. Calling him Grandpa, he promised he would be back to see him later. Hong Wang wished him well in return. Biabgon promised to look after him. Still, Mujin showed up at the Arhat Hall daily, outside his treatment time, inside the Arhat Hall master's room. Some great news had just arrived. Thanks to the abbot, their request for additional funding was approved. Mujin asked, does this mean we can finally get all the gear we need? The master confirmed it. The administrative hall had finally caved. His methods were now official. In short, the Arhat Hall master announced that all physical training would now follow Mujini's revolutionary ways. A smile crept onto his face. The very methods they once called bizarre were at last getting the respect they deserved. But then, a crucial detail hit him. What did switching to his methods truly mean? Music? He questioned. Does this mean I have to teach everyone in this hall? He then asked if that meant personally instructing every single one of them. The master just laughed it off. You only need to teach them Bo, second-level disciples, how to use the stuff. Then he dumped a stack of paper on him. Music. Mujin stared at it, asking what all of this was supposed to be. The master told him to get writing. Any extra equipment he needed had to be listed with detailed notes. Mujin's face lit up. With this new gear, he could finally introduce even more modern training techniques. He then pushed his luck, asking if he could get equipment for another spot, and maybe order a little more. He finally clarified his real intention. He wanted gear to help his grandpa, Master Yang Guang. The master was instantly worried, fearing the workout would be too much for the old man. But Mujin explained it was therapeutic. Equipment, a whole different world. Not quite getting it, the master listened closely as Mujin laid out his plan for Hyung Wang. The secret weapon was Pilates, though many see it as a woman's workout today. It was originally designed for the rehabilitation of wounded soldiers. It was, in other words, the perfect solution. The master fully agreed, stating that there was no way the hall would deny it. Got the go-ahead and was authorized to proceed. As he began outlining the Pilates equipment, Mujin paused, midway. A major problem hit him. He wondered if that gear could even be produced in this time. Most Pilates equipment, like foam rollers and such, uses materials like resistance bands, mostly rubber and plastic. Since those didn't exist then, Mujin got creative, planning replacements with springs and metal frames wrapped in thick leather. Realizing the cost would be astronomical, he tossed the list to the master and left, leaving the man to panic about the temple's bankruptcy. 2 hours later, Mujin finally finished his meeting with Hyeonsong. His buddies greeted him, calling him to eat and noting he was a little late. Then Mugong asked what on earth happened to his hair, noticing the drastic new look. As he began to explain, Mujin recalled that Mugong was now studying under Master Hedam. One of the younger monks began to cry, claiming dust got in his eyes. Another friend tried to cheer him up. As Mujin turned to question Muyel about how things were going, the boy replied he was okay, but there was one small issue. Explaining the problem, Muyel said that every time he trained, his master just sighed very loudly. He also added that the master was planning to visit him today. Leaving Mujin completely lost as to why, not knowing why, Muyel was confused. Elsewhere, Haigol was shown again, sighing deep in frustration. The poor man lamented, blaming himself for his choice, so sure that he had picked the perfect disciple for the job. But Muyel was a simple kid who was easily distracted by a trail of ants. Complaining, Haigol said that for each model, teach him one thing, he'd forget 2, and for every 2, he'd forget 10. Master Heel despaired, convinced that at this rate, the 5 fists of Shaolin would vanish with this generation. Suddenly, Muyel spotted the master. With a blindingly sunny smile, he ran over, calling out to him. Heel sighed, realizing the boy's greatest power was that cheerful smile. It was the sole reason he could never scold him. Instead, he called Muyel and asked about his own martial arts training from his novice days. The young monk chirped, Mujin helped me? Surprised, Heel heard Muyel add that he also helped Mugong and Mugyong. In that moment, the master remembered Mujin was the disciple under Grandmaster Hyung Wang. A plan formed. He decided he had to learn the secret technique that had improved, even this seemingly hopeless child. He told Muyel to go with him to meet Mujin, and the boy happily agreed. In the refectory, the master went and introduced himself to Mujin. The other youths were stunned to see Master Hyol. As Mujin asked why he had come, the master simply said, I have matters to discuss with you and Master Hyung Wang. Join me after the meal. Mujin understood the request to see his grandmaster, but wondered why he was also needed. As they walked to Hyung Wang's quarters, just then, Muyel ran in, greeting Master Hyung Wang, who called him a cheerful boy, confused. Mujin felt a piercing stare and wondered why Master Hyol was looking at him so intensely, receiving them. Hyung Wang began. Guests are always welcome, but to what do I owe the pleasure? Explaining, the master declared, I came to ask Mujin a question. Approaching Yang Wang, he spoke in a low voice, admitting the sheer difficulty of the task. He confessed that even he had heard rumors, that Mujin had guided the child before. With complete honesty, he laid the problem bare. Even the most fundamental Shaolin fist was utterly beyond the young boy's grasp. He desperately needed Mujin's help. Getting straight to what was the reason for this bizarre choice, he wanted a demonstration. Right there from Mujin. Haiguang was floored to hear the boy call him Grandpa? The master then posed a question. Had he ever actually fought the child? Mujin confirmed they'd sparred many times, all as part of their training, of course. All right, Muyel, he grinned. Time to have some fun. He beckoned him towards the courtyard. The young monk's eyes lit up with excitement. Haiguang watched, completely bewildered. What do you mean, have fun? Is this training? Or are you simply playing a game? Even outside, the master couldn't grasp it? What could fun possibly mean in this context? Mujin simply told Muyel. Just think of this. As one of our usual games. And the boy agreed. With his arms crossed, the master watched. Guang admitted he was totally lost. What on earth did playing have to do with martial arts? The three masters observed in tense silence. Finally, one of them smirked. I imagine the meaning will soon be obvious. Mujin turned back to the boy, his eyes twinkling.
Ready. He received a firm, confident nod. In a blur, he shot across the courtyard.
Launching himself toward Muyel with a shout, "Let's play just like the old days." And so, the story unveils the legendary martial art, known as the Five Shaolin Fists, a style born from the great Bodhidharma himself. It was said to be modeled after the raw powers of 5 sacred animals. While other Shaolin arts preach restriction, this one is about the total release of energy. It is the very definition of free expression.
Unlike the Buddha's path to enlightenment, this technique forges its own way.
Because of this, the reputation of the Five Fists teeters on the edge of being completely unhinged. Hyegyol, the style's only master, feels the immense pressure of keeping it alive. Master Hyunggak notes that Hyegyol was a bit too hasty, and his disciple asks why. The master explains that Mu-wol is a perfect match for the 5 Shaolin Fists. His movements
Are wild, unpredictable, and filled with a creative spark. He concludes,
saying Hyegyol must be terrified of choosing the wrong heir, and dooming the style's entire future. Stopping Mugong's attack, Mujin simply says, "That's enough." Mugong smirks, asking if he had fun. Mu-wol grins back, totally agreeing as they share a fist bump. Master Hyunggak then instructs Hyegyol to take Mujin with him. After all, a disciple's problems should be shared among the masters. He also tells him to teach Mujin the 5 Fists, wanting him to learn the same as Mu-wol. Hyegyol and Mugong are totally shocked by this sudden order, but Mu-wol loves the idea of a new training buddy. Arguing, Hyegyol insists that the 5 Fists are the total opposite of other Shaolin styles, but the master just tells him not to worry. Turning to Mujin, he adds, "But don't forget one thing." He explains that what you can see is irrelevant. What matters is the truth hidden underneath it all. Hearing this, Mujin truly absorbs those words. As Master Hyunggak and his disciple leave, Hyegyol bows, promising he will learn everything that he possibly can. The next day, Mujin's training in the 5 Shaolin Fists officially begins, and he finds himself right back on the training grounds. Muyel notes this is their first time, training alone since his injury. Mugong quietly agrees. Observing them, Hegel questions Master Hyungwang's decision to add Mujin. Does he now have 2 problems instead of just one? Mugong could sense the internal conflict, the sheer frustration of getting an unexpected second student. But his grandfather was a grandmaster. He surely had a reason for this path. Regardless, Hale announces he will teach them both, and Mujin resigns himself. He might as well see what he can learn. The master then begins the real lesson, Bodhidharma's 5 Fists, telling Mujin to watch his every move and learn. He explains they'll start with the simplest and most graceful, the crane fist, calling his student over. Hegel tells him to approach for the demonstration. As Muyel's master, he tells Mujin to observe with care.
The first principle, as always, begins with proper chi breathing.
Focusing his energy, he gets ready. He then unleashes a sequence of fluid and impossibly graceful movements. His hands slice a clean arc in the air, and the demo concludes in a final pose. Muyel is amazed, while Mujin realizes this technique is utterly different from any Shaolin style he knows. The master explains it's modeled on a crane, forcing the body to move with pure fluidity. But Mugong sees Muyel contorting in a way he hasn't in ages. Slapping his forehead in despair, Hegel reacts, as Mugong asks what they're supposed to do now. Mujin steps in, noting Muyel has the flexibility and perfect body control for the 5 Fists. He asks, what's the issue? Wrong. Muyel chimes in. This crane fist form, it feels unnatural, explaining. Further, he says the movements are just plain clumsy, and stopping is even weirder. Surprised, Mujin realizes something. He knows all the forms, but he can't see how they're supposed to connect. Then Hegel says this is exactly why he found him. Muyo learned these very techniques with him, back when he was a total newbie, as Muyel continues his awkward dance. Mujin admits he doesn't have a quick fix for this mess, questioning everything. He wonders why his grandfather sent him here.
There had to be a bigger picture. A memory surfaces Master Hyung.
Wang explaining how he forged his own martial art by just combining basics. Overwhelmed, Mujin thanked the master for showing him this profound truth. But the master then gave him a warning. He cautioned that if he kept chasing power, his body would inevitably reach its breaking point, unable to bear the strain. Mujin's fighting style was built on layering simple techniques, not learning fancy advanced ones. As the power of each move was amplified, he constantly had to push his body harder just to keep himself from falling apart. But according to the master, there's a limit. At some point, the body just can't handle that much power, and the whole method will fail. Mujin knew it was true. His grandfather was right. There had to be a smarter way than just stacking power on top of power. Seeing his struggle, the master suggested he should try learning the Diamond Fist, which immediately sparked Mujin's curiosity. The master explained that, like the small flood fist, the Diamond Fist is rooted in the Diamond Sutra, which holds the very keys to Pat's true power control. As the master recites, Mujin was lost, searching for the true meaning. He then met his master's gaze and saw a hint of approval. Hyung Wang then reinforced the point, stressing the need to discover the real meaning in every technique. The visible movements are not what matter. Mujin's mind raced back. His master always said the true meaning was the absolute key to mastery. He then asked himself once more,
What is the soul of the crane fist? And then it finally clicked.
the movement of a real crane is exactly what the form follows. The moment he saw the truth of the fist, it all made sense. He got it. Turning to Muel, Music, Mujin asked him, "Have you ever seen a crane?" Muel shifted awkwardly, then replied
That he had honestly never seen one before. He then asked, Is that something to eat?
this style was designed to flow. Every single move should be natural. So why was this flexible boy struggling? It was completely illogical. Beopan questioned him immediately. "Are you saying the move is too awkward? And that's why he can't do it?" Mujin quickly shut that down. That wasn't his point at all. The issue is that Muel has never seen a crane. He's only copying. He then addressed Beopian directly. The movement itself isn't the problem. Just think about it for a second. Sure, animal movements are natural, but only for that animal's body. That form belongs to that creature. We only imitate it with ours.
With our limited human bodies. Beifan nodded, confirming it.
This was the foundation of their training. But Mujin argued Muel just needed a foundation to find his own style, movements. Beopian scoffed at the idea. Mujin calmly explained that his friend can't just mimic the form of a crane.
But he can learn to become the crane itself, blowing everyone's mind.
Then it all clicked, and Heigl realized why the master had sent the boy his way. Mujin then started questioning himself. Why was he so stuck on specific forms? When he himself never followed the book upon reflection, he remembered a truth. He was the heir to Shaolin's most liberated style, the 5 animal fists. When had he completely lost sight of the style's untamed spirit? He was trapped by a narrow interpretation of Bodhidharma's teachings. Heigo agreed. "You're right," he said. It was decided. They had to show Mule a real, live crane. Bapanyan, ever practical, had a plan. They could just go out and catch one. They usually gathered in a spot nearby. But the next day, a small problem arose. How exactly do you bring a crane back to the temple? The issue remained. At the grounds, Mujin rushed in late. He'd been with his grandfather's treatment, music. But he stopped short at the gate. The courtyard was strangely empty. Master Heil. No one answered. He looked around for Bafan and Muel. Where had everybody gone cautiously? He stepped into the courtyard. Was practice just canceled for the day? That's when Mujin spotted the boy. He asked Mule if he knew what was going on. Mule was completely clueless. Mujin peeked around a corner, grinning. He watched as Mule's eyes went wide, with pure amazement. Right there, in a new pond, stood a living crane. Hayel and the others beamed with pride. "Cranes are amazing," they exclaimed.
That bird's grace was the true origin, inspiration for its fighting.
Style. Together, they unleashed the crane fist, one of Shaolin's 5 legendary forms. Entering the courtyard, Mujin asked if it was time for training, just as Muol announced his presence. They turned, and the master and Bufanian whispered his name in shock, leaving him baffled. Then, they both screamed Mujin's name with comical intensity. An excited Muel urged him forward, yelling, "It's incredible!" Joining his masters, Mujin helped with the crane fist demonstration for Muel, who watched in total awe. In a flashback, the masters had performed the technique alongside the elegant bird's movements, hoping Muel would absorb every detail. Boone had even asked, "Is the boy even getting this?" But the kid just stayed crouched, quietly studying the crane. What resulted was a crane fist, totally different from Higal's and Bayon's. After seeing the creature's true motions, he interpreted them for his own unique body, with his natural gifts, and a special bond with animals. He moved in perfect sync with the bird. He had transcended human limits and found a true harmony with the animal. His
form was the very embodiment of the crane's spirit. Beofan watched, utterly
floored, while Mujin and Heigal stood in stunned silence. Being so new, the movements lacked refinement and deadly intent, but that was easily fixed.
With a master's touch, with a slight adjustment to an arm and a leg,
The master explained the style's greatest strength. All 5 forms connect, freely, which would help him perfect his own crane fist. He promised that, even though it was different from the original. The core freedom of the 5 fists would guide him true. He then looked at Mujin, asking if he thought models hulls. Muyel confirms his newfound understanding. Indeed. With a final, decisive knot on his sash, he catches everyone's eye. He addresses Bopian and Master Hyegel. His announcement is simple. My work here is done. I won't be returning tomorrow. Hyegel remarks with a knowing smile. It seems he found his answer. He's now prepared to face his own master. Mujin bows deeply, grateful for the teachings. But he has one final request. The master has a request of his own. He asks Muyel to accompany Mujin. The boy eagerly accepts. As they depart, Bopian asks, is it wise to send him away so soon? But Hyegel simply shakes his head. That boy, he explains, was never truly here. To learn our crane fist? A realization dawns. Mujin finally understood the situation. He had nothing left to learn here. His true goal was never the crane fist. He had already forged his own fighting style. But a wall had blocked his progress, stopping him from safely mastering and incorporating new techniques. Observing Hyegel and Muyel refine the crane fist gave him the flash of insight he needed. If he began with the small deluge fist and merged it with moves from the diamond fist, he could amplify his power. While reducing the strain on his body, it was just as his grandfather predicted. He wanted Mujin to grasp the true essence of his own unique martial art. He never needed to master the crane fist, only to understand its core principles for his new hybrid style. A thought crosses his mind. Could there be other legendary fists, like a dragon fist? But even if there were, finding one would be a task for Muyel's masters. That was hardly his concern right now. Back at the dojo, Hyegel announces, I will depart. He tells Bopian to send Muyel away once he arrives. But in that very moment, something absolutely astonishing appears. And in that moment, it all clicked. This entire situation was the result of Hyung Wang's grand design. In awe, Hyegel wondered if the master had planned it all, and if Mujin had already grasped the real lesson. What a terrifying thought. A month into the rigorous treatment, Mujin noticed his grandfather was no longer wincing at the smallest of motions. A full recovery was still a distant dream, and a massive hurdle stood in their way. But that didn't matter. Since there was no other option, he knew then and there it was time to get deadly serious. This was his only path forward, elsewhere. Abbot Haiyan and Master Hedam wondered if Master Hang would ever truly recover. Still, they saw a new light in his eyes. Hedam recalled a not-so-distant memory. How the abbot swore to punish Mujin if this treatment was a failure. But now, he realized that threat was just a push to get him to take this seriously. The abbot simply said that in any case, they should pick up the pace in Yang Wang's private quarters. Mujin began the next phase. As the doors slid open, the masters strode in, asking what was so important he'd call them so urgently. Turning to the abbot, Mujin asked for a moment. He explained he was just wrapping up his grandfather's physical therapy. Watching the scene unfold, the abbot's jaw practically hit the floor in surprise. Hyung Wang asked, So, it's the hips today. Yesterday was the legs, after all. Mujin confirmed. As he moved, the abbot blurted out with concern, asking if Master Yang Wang should be moving so freely. But Yang Wang responded with a calm smile. It has become remarkably easier. That was just a simple warm-up. His casual answer left the abbot speechless, because to Master Hyung Wang, that was no simple movement. Before he could even process it, barely breathing, unable to move, his body was a prison of pain. Outside the room, Hyedam questioned the treatment's progress. Hyanqian admitted he never dreamed he'd see the master move alone. He remembered Mujin's bold claim that 1 month would be enough. And now, the proof was undeniable. The results were already showing. Hyedam finally admitted his own doubts, confessing he'd questioned the methods. He was stunned by their success. Hyanqian announced he had summoned Mujin to appear before them. It was time to question him directly. Mujin, however, knew the situation. The elders had placed immense trust in his abilities, but he wondered, would faith alone be enough? He understood this was the moment. The true test was about to begin. He had to make his grandfather walk. Until now, he'd focused entirely on intense rehabilitation exercises and therapy to rebuild his core. He personally helped him practice, assisting him to stand and walk again. Like a modern physical therapy patient, Hyung Wang was relearning everything. His joints had finally recovered. But after decades of stillness, with his body only moved by others, his muscles were completely atrophied. They had wasted away to nothing. It was time to rebuild his strength. Mujin knew this was the only path. Opening the door, he entered boldly. I have something to report, he announced. Regarding my grandfather's condition, One of the masters questioned him. Is something wrong, we heard? That he was already moving on his own. For now, things are going well, Mujin said. But we have a problem. The master demanded the next step. Mujin detailed the core issue. While there's recovery, the cartilage is gone. It's deteriorated, a problem usually fixed by strengthening the surrounding muscles. But for his weakened grandfather, the exercises would be too much. That kind of pressure would destroy his joints and make things worse. Cutting in, one of the masters asked, Are you only raising this problem because you have a solution ready? Another commented. His treatment has been a great success so far. Your achievements are truly admirable. They encouraged him, asking him to share his method. They promised to listen openly. Taking a breath, Mujin prepared to state what his grandfather needed. He said it plainly. The only solution is to eat meat. The masters were struck silent. The word meat echoed in the chamber. The narrator notes its necessity is a very controversial topic. Many vegetarian experts will insist a meatless diet is more than enough. As a doctor, Gang Yuk studied this too. Though all proteins have amino acids, the real problem is absorption. How the body takes them in matters. At his age, Hyung Wang's digestive system can't process large meals. So he needs dense protein from meat. But this was the legendary Shaolin. Here, the simple act of eating meat was completely unthinkable. One stood up. Eating meat in Shaolin is sacrilege. That will never be allowed. Mujin put his head in his hands. This was far worse than he imagined. The abbot approached with a question. Why must one eat meat to build muscle? When you, Mujin, managed to do so without it. Mujin recalled the taste of meat from his youth, declaring that this situation was entirely different. With conviction, he explained. Beans and mushrooms may mimic meat, but in the end, they are nothing more than substitutes. He then added, Unlike myself or Bayob Gang, my grandfather lacks the resilience of youth to recover. He pressed them. Isn't the point of abstaining from meat to overcome desire? I admit, that is precisely how I succeeded. But he stressed a crucial point. This training is for those strong enough to endure, not when the law itself pushes a man toward his own death. The image of his grandfather filled his mind. Panic tightened its grip. He roared, I refuse to let that happen again. Doesn't that break the ultimate law against taking a life? A vein pulsed. On one of the master's temples, he seethed with fury. You insolent child! You dishonor the great master Hyung Wang Guang and dare lecture me on Shaolin law. Just then, Abbot Haiyan placed a hand on the furious master's shoulder. Calm yourself. Hyung tried to resist, but it was no use. With a single touch, Haiyan had neutralized all his inner energy. The abbot then faced the other master, who conceded the point. The boy does have a valid argument, but he questioned, is meat truly the only way for the elder to regain his health? And why must that be the sole path? Mujin instantly saw the problem. He couldn't just use modern terms here. They knew nothing of the science. Behind protein and muscle recovery, time to improvise. He began to explain. Reincarnation isn't just about what happens after we die. He argued that even now, the world itself lives in constant cycles. To properly nourish this human vessel, a certain amount of flesh is required. Model nature's law is simple life ends, and is reborn. Humans are just part of that food chain. With a clever tone, he asks if it's a sin to eat what's already dead, just to keep on living. Even if needless killing is a crime. He pushes his point, saying in the grand scheme of things, we're all just animals. That's the simple truth. Consuming flesh is how we build our own. The abbot absorbed every word of his speech in total silence. Then, a heavy sigh escaped him. Breaking it, he admitted, Your logic isn't entirely flawed, but we can't break 1,000 years of Shaolin law on a whim. But when Mujin tried to argue back, a single gesture from the abbot cut him off. However, he continued, that doesn't mean we can abandon the master who has protected this order, as if recalling a past battle. The abbot's eyes glazed over. He turned to Hyunggong, making a request in the name of the Jade Buddha's palm, to re-examine a Shaolin tenet. The other masters were stunned, but Hanseon simply voiced what they all knew. He proposed a clever change, adding a new exception to Shaolin tradition, allowing meat for the sick as treatment. This bold suggestion left the elders completely and utterly speechless. A silent cheer, Mujin knew he could finally save his grandfather. Hayon declared the final decision, stating this path would let them preserve Shaolin's honor by punishing the master for his sin. A punishment, Mujin immediately asked, volunteering to take whatever it was upon himself. The abbot then informed him of 1 full month of meditation. Then came the real question, was he ready to endure that 4 times over? In a whisper, he wondered what a month meditation, but he simply accepts. He takes the punishment without complaint, saying, that is nothing. The masters questioned the abbot's bizarre decision. The abbot admits the situation is truly unexpected. The next day,
inside Hyung Wang's quarters, he learns about what happened at the meeting.
the master confesses to Haiyan that for Shaolin's next generation, their only hope is Mujin. Reflecting, Hyanshin admits that their devotion to tradition has only bound Shaolin in chains for 1,000 years. Looking back, he says he only took the abbot's seat because of Hyung Wang's injuries, and that his own failures made him cling to outdated customs. Taking the blame, Hyanshin holds himself responsible for Shaolin's fall from glory. In response, Hyung Wang says change is not always for the best, a truth he knows well. The abbot agrees. That was the very reason he chose Mujin, praying the boy would bring a change for the better. Confirming his resolve, Hyung Wang decides to trust in Mujin again. The abbot then allows him to enter.
As Mujin enters with a food tray, Hyung Wang sees it, and instantly
knows, on the tray, was food that contained meat. He knew it. The master recognized the porridge, a meal he had not tasted for several decades. Left with no choice, Hyung Wang accepts it. He recalled the resolve in Hyanshin's eyes, and all Mujin endured to persuade the elders. And so, for the first time after taking his vows, the master ate meat. The following week, Mujin started to teach Baokupen how to continue the master's treatment in his stead. With the treatment, Hyung Wang starts eating small portions of meat, be it the medicine or the diet. His master is finally on the road to recovery. Now, it is Mujin's turn
for his meditation inside the cave. Trekking through the forest, he feels
he never expected to return here, but he must do what has been ordered. As he nears the cave, he remembers being dragged here as a total novice. His initial plan was to meditate a bit, hunt for meat, and try to live in survival mode. But with the abbot now present, he leads him into the cave. Mujin recalls the meeting. Remembering the abbot knew the whole affair was quite strange. Announcing his choice, Yonian said he would take the exact same punishment. Stunned, the boy asked if he meant to join the meditation, and the abbot confirmed it. That's when it clicked. He understood how the temple's law was being bent, and that he was now in a very tight spot the moment they sit down. Hyeon begins chanting Buddhist scriptures, and Mujin feels his entire body freeze. As the recitation continues, the abbot makes the boy see that he is jumbling up every single sutra in silence. Mujin can only listen. Suddenly, he feels something is wrong. Since the abbot should not be chanting sutras, his old training kicks in, and he gets it. Hyeon is mixing them up on purpose. Passages from completely different texts are recited in a bizarre order. While meditating, Mujin starts to look for a pattern in this sequence. Then he finally sees it. They all come from core texts he learned and are connected to martial art forms. With this new insight, he begins to pay close attention, associating the chant. Every sutra, a hidden technique. And so, the ultimate mental boot camp begins. In his mind's eye, he constructs the first form, a straight punch, and the sixth, a devastating kick. But something feels off. The entire sequence just feels wrong. For 30 minutes, he runs the simulation, linking ancient texts with deadly arts. Then, his intense focus begins to waver. His body screams, demanding to execute the forms. This whole thinking part was getting old, but he quickly remembers his situation. He can't just stand up before the abbot. Suddenly, Hyeon begins to chant the sutras, leaving our young hero utterly bewildered. He frantically tries to figure it out. Is this a test? What does he expect? The old master was waiting for something. Deciding to risk it all, he prepares to rise. He would finally practice the movements.
Passing Hyeon, Mujin sees the abbot, still completely lost in meditation.
The lack of reaction was the only sign he needed. It was time to act. He initiated the first move. A sharp jab explodes forward, the first form of the legendary chain-linking fist. He follows with the 21st diamond fist form, and finishes this deadly combination
with the ferocious autumn wind leg, with the abbot providing a perfect rhythm.
It becomes easy to sync his movements. But then he notices something strange. The master is repeating the same passage. He wonders if he's already made a mistake. Hyanshin coughs, and it all clicks into place. A cough was a signal for an error. The very tone of the chant was the key. It became lower and calmer for a perfect move. This bizarre training was teaching him to combine the ultimate techniques from each sutra. The order and speed of his strikes were dictated by the abbot's hypnotic rhythm. And so this secret, grueling training continued deep into the night. At that moment, Mujin started to question why. He was being secretly trained. The abbot suddenly realized that they had taken far too much of Mujin's time. With the old master's recovery, it felt like a crime to even think of asking for another whole month. He decided he had to make up for all the training Mujin had sacrificed. A monk arrived with rations and water, telling them it was time to eat. So, Honian and Mujin entered the cave. Mujin realized he was almost caught and hadn't sensed their presence at all.
Someone had approached without him knowing. He finally understood the situation.
The abbot's cough was a signal. His training had been secretly approved, but he couldn't sit still anymore. It was time to leave. Watching him, Hyanshin thought the cave was too small for any real training anyway. But Mujin left not to train, but for protein. He politely asked a rabbit to find its parents. Elsewhere, Bobjin saw that the master's change was incredible, thanks to the meat diet and physical therapy. Hyung Wang's progress was obvious. His once frail and weak body was now showing the first signs of muscle. With this newfound strength, he could finally move without any help. Just then, he was told the time had come. Another disciple showed up, so Bobby excused himself to make lunch. As he left, Hyung Wang was silent. He reflected on the amazing changes, realizing his own body had been held back by his stubborn old ways. He then recalled how the abbot took the blame for sticking so rigidly to tradition. He hadn't agreed back then, but now he understood the abbot's burden. He knew, deep down, that he wouldn't have done anything differently in his place. He finally admitted it to himself. Admits he was a total clown, remembering his own edgy past speeches, saying rules matter less than vibes. Crippled, he was blind to truth. But standing up unlocks his eyes. Why were they obsessed with aesthetics? Just because of old Shaolin traditions, blindly following the old ways. Flashback to the ultimate tragic day. When the demon cult raided everything and completely nuked his ultimate powers, everyone panicked, but he smiled anyway.
Pretending everything was totally fine. Cap secretly. He was crying in agony.
At peak, he thought he knew everything. Mastering 5 ultimate natures, then his stats got nerfed. He couldn't accept the ultimate truths, since his mana core was wrecked, but plot armor saves the day. Thanks to a very stubborn friend, he meditates in silent peace. Even if Shaolin burns down today, its spirit remains in his heart. Now he sits in the rain, chanting awakening mantras like a boss. The martial god finally awakens, merging absolute power with total inner peace. This ultimate awakening breaks his limits, reaching peak freedom and massive aura. Meanwhile, the old master wonders how vast the universe's energy really is. While puny humans have tiny batteries, strolling through the silent temple halls, Hyung stops dead in his tracks, sensing massive, unmeasured aura nearby. He dashes across the yard. Wait, is that his friend's energy? But it feels weird and godly. He stares up at the cliffside, wondering what crazy power-up happened. Meanwhile, other monks rush outside. The abbot's jaw hits the floor. This power level is totally impossible. Hyung watches the sky explode. His master's chi suddenly explodes. Did he just hit enlightenment on the cliff? Hyung Wang continues to meditate.
Colossal energy pillar shoots into the sky. It's a light show for the entire temple.
The monks notice the rain has stopped. They wonder about the source of this power. But they instantly recognize the signature. Even the novices could feel it. This overwhelming presence belongs to one man, Master Hyung Wang. A kind, warm aura, far beyond anything they had ever felt, washes over every monk in the courtyard. Joining their hands, they show their respect. Every single one of them bows deeply. They realize Hyung Wang has reached nirvana. In unison, they begin to chant a mantra. Hyung raises his voice. Has my master finally attained enlightenment? Floating mid-air, Hyung Wang is a beacon, completely encased in pure energy. He responds calmly. I am simply letting my heart accept what my mind already understood. Hyung is baffled. That was not the answer he expected. He asks, but if you've reached nirvana, why haven't you become a Buddha? The master explains his delay. I have some unfinished business.
And my nirvana was only possible thanks to Mujin, he declares.
Walking toward them, he asks, where is he? A monk reports. He's been in meditation with the abbot for the last 18 days. But the abbot interrupts. Hyanshin states that isn't true at all. That single statement sends a shockwave. Through the monks and Hyung, a messenger sprints toward the cave. He can tell this is a bad situation. Arriving, he informs the abbot and Mujin that their session is officially over. It's time to return. Recalling his orders, Hyon protests, but there are still 10 days left of our punishment. Insisting, the monk announced, I have received orders to escort you back. The abbot questioned.
Who possesses the authority to end a formal punishment, the source?
He replied, the order is from Master Hyung Wang. Alarmed, Mujin asked,
why would the Grandmaster suddenly order my meditation to be cut short and...
Has something happened to my grandfather? Haigong inquired what the master was up to. The answer was simple. No need to yell. Next, he brought up the food, and Hyung Wang said he heard it was beneficial for his health. He noted the rules had eased thanks to the abbot, urging him to have a bite. But the master retorted, does one who has attained nirvana still need to concern themselves with that. As they walked, Yang Wang casually asked, "Is there some issue with what I'm consuming?" He pressed on, questioning if Hyang only sent Mujin into that cave as a ploy to save his own skin, a disciple. Then announced the arrival of Mujin and the abbot. Hyang Wang welcomed them. Mujin whispered quietly to the abbot, "I feared the absolute worst from this. Sudden summons, but my worries were for nothing." Stepping inside, the young man went ahead while the abbot pondered what the issue could be. As they got closer, both Mujin and the abbot noticed a strange smell, drifting from within the room. The scene unfolded. Yang Wang revealed a massive feast and told Hyang, "You cannot reach the state of Buddha with so much life left. To savor," declaring his stance. Hyang stated he would argue no further. The master thanked him for his cooperation before summoning Mujin over. Standing in the doorway, Mujin was completely speechless at the sight. Before him, he could only ask himself, "What's going on, Hyang Wang?"
Questioned. "Isn't it obvious?" he replied. Smiling, he declared, "I'm just taking care."
"Of my body." Turning to Hyang Gong for answers, Mujin heard the master confirm that he ate nothing. But then, Hyang Wang's asked him to flex his arm, Hyang Wang said. "For ages, I could barely move, but now, with this meat, I feel much better." Stating firmly, he said, "We simply can't lock Mujin in a cave. Those who do the right thing can't really be
called guilty." Waving him off, Hyang Wang told Mujin to train, asking
the abbot to remain. The young man took the chance to escape, leaving Hyanin behind. After hearing the full story, Mujin griped, "So grandfather reached nirvana, just to become that thing because he loved meat. But there was also some good news. The equipment he requested from the Grandmaster had finally arrived," Biopian remarked. "Now you can train to your heart's content." Arriving at the scene, Mujin saw a hall filled with monks using the new weightlifting gear. Biopian explained they had no idea how to use some of the new gear and begged him to teach everyone, remembering the past. Mujin knew this place was not quite on the level of his old gym, but the scent of sweat and iron made him feel like he was in a true temple, one dedicated to the body. Two monks were eyeing a piece of equipment, wondering how to use it, deciding to wait for Mujin. When he arrived, Mujin asked, "Muyel? So, where's Mugyong?" Mugong replied that he was likely somewhere else, as other monks came near, asking, "Did he break out of prison?" A monk asked, pointing at a piece of equipment. In response, Mujin just facepalmed, head roaring. "Now that's what I call real equipment." But then he corrected himself,
revealing the object's true, humble nature. It was, in fact, just a rubber wheel.
He then issued a challenge. "So, are you here to master these tools, or just to stand around and gawk?" He seized the giant wheel, noting its ancient construction. Wood and iron spokes, all coated in melted natural rubber, with a mighty turn, he declared. "This trial must be repeated across the entire training field." He revealed its specs. This tire weighs 250 goon. This single exercise forges the entire body, teaching the very essence of power distribution. As a test, he called out to Magong, who boldly accepted the challenge. As the boy began, Mujin gave him a stern warning. Relying on inner strength is cheating. Just then, Muyel wandered over. "Hey, I've got a question too," he said, admitting he had no idea what one piece of equipment was for, so he just made something up. "Am I doing this right?" Mujin watched as Muyel leaped over a 3-meter-high bar with absurd ease. He instantly realized this kid's flexibility marked him as the true heir to the 5 fists. Watching him move, Mujin could only compare him to a wild monkey, wondering, could there be a legendary 6th fist hanging upside down like his spirit animals? Mu asked again. "So, is it right?" Mujin could only give him a thumbs up. All around them, other strange training tools were scattered across the yard. Looking at this glorious mess, Mujin knew he'd found paradise. He realized that pure size and muscle would only hinder his martial arts. The key was flexibility. He had to maintain that crucial balance. His new career as a Shaolin trainer began. Mujian was more determined than ever to achieve mastery in record time. But his focus wasn't just on his career. He boldly told his grandfather that he would personally oversee his recovery with some rather new tools. He then unveiled what he called a simple leather pole. The object was a firm, solid cylinder, or what we'd call a foam roller, Mujin explained. You can use this on almost any part of the body. He then challenged his grandfather to try. As Hung Wang began using the roller, he was quickly warned to be careful. And start slow, Mujin clarified. Your muscles are a disaster zone. It'll hurt at first, but they will eventually relax. In that very moment, Hyung Wang had an epiphany. Everyone must use this amazing tool to escape the obsession of learning only through pure suffering. Changing gears, his grandfather then asked about the progress of Mujin's training. The old master observed him carefully. He noticed how smoothly the chi now coursed through his grandson's body compared to before. Meeting? Satisfied? Mujin smirked. All this insane training is finally paying off. Silent for a moment. Yang Guang continued his keen observation. Turning, he grabbed something hidden, saying, "Just as I predicted." He presented Mujin with a map and a cryptic message, prompting the boy to ask, "Who is this for?" Yang Guang countered. "Do you recall when you learned the 5 fists, Mujin?" Confirmed he learned to link and then combine all the complex movements. His grandfather then handed him the paper, saying, "This next place will also be of immense help to you." This, of course, made the young man very suspicious. He simply affirmed Mujin would see why when he arrived. Meanwhile, a man drank, deeply from a gourd. "He's on the ground," a nearby disciple complained. "At this rate, model, you'd struggle to even catch a fly. Please, slow down." But their master, Hayaguan, just scoffed. At this rate, they'd all become utterly useless. The chief of the Death Demon Brigade roared for them to hurry. Mujin's name was called. After all his harsh training, Mujin's inner strength had finally solidified. Clutching a message from Master Hyungwang, he journeyed toward the Death Demon Brigade. Yet he felt a trace of nerves, since training was with Huan, the brigade chief. Finally arriving, he saw the immense temple, gates, inside. Hagwon was demanding the monks attack with more spirit, and stop being cowards. He threatened, "I will feed you all to the wolves." Spurred on, the entire group of disciples surged at him. But Hagwon just tossed a bottle into the air and cracked a monk's face with his staff. Next, he struck down 2 more, mocking their predictable moves. As one cried out, Hagwon launched himself into the air. But the tip of his staff met another's head. Spotting an opening, a man tried to attack his back. With a spin, he struck 2 monks at once with his staff. Shocked, one of the disciples saw the attack was merely deflected, effortlessly. Hagwon handled multiple staff attacks at once. He laughed at them, showing complete control, as all the disciples were struck at once. He caught the bottle in midair, holding it with ease, with everyone down. He looked down and called them useless. But Mugyong rose and prepared the attack known as the 18 Hands of Dharma. He charged, delivering a swift blow. Leaping over him, Hagwon asked, "Did you see how easy that was to dodge?" and struck with a powerful blow to the back. As the young man fell, he stated, Mugong couldn't control his bloodlust, but he ended up saving everyone. A disciple approached, announcing that Mujin had arrived with a message for the master. He formally introduced himself. Mujin declared himself a 3rd-generation disciple before Master Hagwon. Hagwon looked at him, utterly confused. Then, he started to laugh, pointing at the young man's hair. Taking the message, he asked, "Did Hyung from the Hall of Discipline actually allow that?" Reading it, he noted the request to train Mujin, who should be meditating for a month. Hyagwon questioned, "Did the boy know what was written in this?" Mujin replied, "I did not read it." Explaining, he stated, "The message authorizes my own teaching methods," pointing to the fallen men. Mujin asked, "Is that what you're referring to?" Hagwon confirmed, declaring, "The master says there's no better training than a real fight," he explained. "The Death Demon Brigade faces pure evil, beyond redemption. The brigade exists to combat the worst of the demonic cult," he warned. "Anyone who doesn't fight with, their all will be easily defeated." He added, "I won't go easy on Mujin." As he began to submit, Mujin was cut off by a staff grazing his face. Leaping towards him, Hagin shouted, "There's no reason to wait. Let's fight." The young man asked, "Is the fight now?" The new master replied, "Does the enemy usually wait?" Sliding aside, Mujin prepared a counterattack. "I will do my best," he said, attacking, and says, "I will do my best," attacking. Mujin charged forward, but Hagwon just scoffed. "Your strength and speed are still pathetic." But then, his eyes caught something. The kid was using the iron shirt technique. In that split second, Mujin had used the art to protect his own face. Music. Hagwon had to give him some credit. He was creatively mixing in diamond fist moves. Even after taking a barrage of hits, he had to admit the kid's flow wasn't entirely terrible, but a face full of sand quickly changed that. The master pointed out a critical flaw. "Your transitions are a complete mess." "That's cheating," Mujin cried out. But Hagwon simply sneered. "Your enemy won't care." Attacking again, the master lectured. "You need to sink to their level, not whine about what's fair." Then, his gaze drifted to something else. He was staring at the boy's haircut. He couldn't believe Hyung actually approved that. Watching the boy's sheer tenacity, music, Hagwon had a brilliant, terrible idea. He'd make Mugyong get that same haircut. Every time Mujin left an opening, Hagwon exploited it with some cheap shot. but the kid refused to complain. Higuan chuckled. You're fun to fight. But a warning? Women hate stubborn guys. Barely breathing. Mujin shot back. Then you must be very popular, master.
All right, break time, the master announced. The fight was finally over.
Mujin immediately collapsed onto the ground, flat on his back. Mujin addressed Mugyong. Are you going to play dead all day? I heard you greet me before. Mugyong sat up, completely unfazed. I was just waiting for the master's guard to drop. That was my moment to attack. Lying there, Mujin finally understood. This beatdown had exposed all his weaknesses. Turning to Mugyong, he proposed a new plan.
Let's learn how to play dirty too, announces the head of administration has arrived.
A sly grin appears on Mujin's face. I have a brilliant idea. But Hegwin just scoffs. We just need funds for drinks and water for the children. Then, a disciple informs him.
He isn't alone. A glint in his eye, Mujin declares. Perfect. I'm going to ambush
that old drunkard. He unveils his genius plan. Listen, Mugyong, no matter how strong, the master is, he's bound to leave an opening eventually, with a scheme already brewing. Mujin tells his partner to get ready to strike the moment the master moves forward. But Mugyong is skeptical. That won't work on a monster like him. Mujin just smirks.
Oh, it'll work. He confidently explains that his plan is foolproof, as long as the target has
even a shred of gratitude left in him. Hagwan grumbles to his disciple about the commotion a single visitor is causing. Just then, a voice echoes. Is my visit truly such a problem? The master nearly jumps. The figure approaches, saying, Surely, I can't be that unwelcome. Stepping into the light, the newcomer reveals himself as Master Hyung. Wang, with a knowing smile, he adds, I'd be hurt if you've forgotten me. Higuan, seeing him, Higuan is utterly speechless. He can't believe Hyung Wang is actually able to stand, driven by sheer impulse. The brigade master dashes towards him. A monk whispers in disbelief. I've never seen our master act like this, not even for the abbot. Mujin nods in agreement. Of course not, he scoffs. That brute would never show respect to anyone. But seeing Hegwin's mad dash, he realizes, Mugyong, it's time. This is the moment with a triumphant grin. Mugyong confirms, Mujin truly knows Higuan better than anyone. He remembers him well. Despite his fierce appearance, Higuan was never truly rude. In fact, back then, he was more like a nervous puppy. And that's exactly why he came in person. Hyung Wang casually remarks to Mujin, You seem to know Hyuan well. That kid used to follow me around like a lost puppy, he adds. I guess the kid feels he owes me everything. Or so I've been told, heard. As they speak, Hyuan dashes into position. Hyung Wang watches him, commenting that he never did anything that special for him. But seeing Hyuan run to his master sparks a flicker of a forgotten memory. A flashback. He once ran just like that, straight to his grandparents, rushing. A young Higuan would ask if his master had recovered, just as he once ran to show, off a beetle to his grandpa. But in his frantic excitement, he completely misses a stone and goes flying. He tumbles across the ground. Watching the show, his grandparents just look at him, knowing that pure excitement breeds total clumsiness. Sound of nostalgic music. Turning as he notices the boy's sudden movements. Master Hyung Wang finally gets the picture. This is it. Mujin and Mugyong make their move to ambush Hagwan. The two prepare. A pincer attack, using the master's own lessons on fighting dirty. Ironic. With his guard totally down, lost in joy. Hyuan is caught off guard, striking as one. Mujin and Mugyong charge forward together, but their blows are stopped cold. That's when Mujin realized just how strong the brigade chief truly was. Clutching the gourd, shards, Hagwan gives his review. Not a bad surprise, I'm almost touched. Then he snatches Mujin and Mugyong by their heads and promptly slams them into the dirt, saying, You need another 100 years of practice. Hyuan then orders them to keep up the training in his absence. The two can only agree. Beside Hyung Wang, the elder master questions, Aren't you a bit too hard on those kids? Squeezing the bottle. Hyuan states it would be a fatal error to underestimate them. He explains, If I don't show my fangs, they'll get complacent. One must always live as if they are at war, stating, This firmly, he vows there will be no more regrets, leaving the master to think. A memory? A young, eager monk dashes toward Hyung Wang, announcing, with a huge smile, I finally did it. I'm a third-generation disciple now. I'm not a mere novice anymore. Yang Wang congratulates him warmly. You'll become one of Shaolin's legends if you just keep going, running. With fierce determination, the boy pushes on, having trained so hard for this moment, but he freezes in his tracks, facing a dark and terrifying figure. On the day the demonic cult descended upon Shaolin, one of them sneered, Look at this pathetic little bug. As the attack came, young Hyuan gathered his strength, entering his best form. Hyung Wang then appeared, striking the foe with a single punch. That day, the master saved so many lives, and Haegwon was the very last. As a result, his spiritual core was completely shattered. His future, ruined. It was then he swore he'd never let those demons rest, swearing an oath of vengeance. He promised to make them personally pay for what they had done. He took his first steps to become a demon of death, and he regrets absolutely nothing. Back in the present, Master Hyung-Wang observes him. He breaks the silence, asking, "How are you holding up?" And Hee-Wang simply replies,
I can handle this burden. Then Hyung-Wang asks, please look after that.
"Boy for me," he carefully explains. "It's far too early for me to guide him, as he surpassed any level that you could possibly comprehend." As Haegwon asks for, with a sip, Young-Wang asks for the drink, leaving Hagen utterly stunned to realize the Grand Master actually drinks alcohol. He flashes back to a time when he swore it was anything but an alcoholic drink and scrambled to hide the very same bottle, choosing his words carefully. Hee-Won asks, "Master, are you feeling all right?" as he sees him drink straight from the gourd. With a smile, Hyung-Wang proclaims, "Ah, this water is truly exquisite." The disciples could hardly believe their ears. Hee-Won quickly retrieves the bottle, offering to pour for his master instead. Elsewhere, Mujin and Mugyong are locked in a fierce training session in the courtyard. And back in the pagoda, a drink is shared. It was a strange sight for Shaolin Temple, but a memorable one nonetheless. However, Yanong, the administrative head, is drowning in financial worries, just trying to feed all the disciples. He grimly realizes he can't accept any new monks into the fold next year. This entire mess, he thinks, is because of those two troublemaking newcomers. Mujin notes that Mugyong's power has grown, a clear result of his intense training. With their constant sparring, it would be weird if he didn't improve. But then, something else grabs his focus. He can't help but wonder to himself, what's got the head of administration looking so utterly defeated? It clicks. In a flash, he grasps the entire dire economic situation of the temple. When the man holding the purse strings looks that gloomy, things are bad. As a former gym owner, Mujin knew that particular look all too well. He tells Mugyong he recognizes that expression anywhere. They're in a tough spot, though isolated from the world. The legendary Shaolin Temple stands as the peak of martial arts, or so it seems, but that doesn't cover their basic needs, as they rely on donations from visitors. With backing from the powerful sect clans, they never had trouble making ends meet. One monk whispers to another, "Grab that fallen coin before it rolls away." The administrative hall is saving every copper. Confused, the other disciple asks, wondering if things have gotten so dire that they're now chasing after single coins. In a hushed tone, another monk explains, "Are we this poor because of Mujin?" His colleague grimly confirms, "In a way. It all started when Mugyong was tormented by some sect clan disciples, and Mujin stepped in to save him. The punishment he unleashed on them was severe. Mutai's cronies had their chi centers shattered, destroying their ability to ever learn martial arts. The protectors of the Seo Merchant Guild, who terrorized locals, had their own powers completely sealed. Their stolen fortune was returned to the people. After the Seo protectors fell, several sect clans grew suspicious. They assumed Shaolin had seized the money. A chilling fear began to spread. What if the same thing happened to them to escape that constant worry? They chose to leave first. The clans sided with the avaricious merchants, furious with Shaolin for their expulsion. And since Shaolin did nothing to stop them, nearly half the supporting clans just left, pulling all their donations. On top of that, the yoga and Pilates equipment for Hyung-Wang, plus all of Mujin's modern training machines, only added to the temple's massive debt, crushing the administrative hall, now seen as a bottomless money pit. Mujin knew he wasn't popular, but he did help the others. He improved the training for all disciples and made the great master healthier. With their training complete, Hyung-Wang announced that he and Bopkin could handle things. It was time for Mujin to go back to his thrilling, normal routine, his special treatment over. He tended the grounds and started receiving visitors again. Once his cleaning was done, Mujin was called by his peers to help with the guests. The other disciples couldn't help but gossip. Well, he does the same work as us now. As he welcomed the visitors, Mujin found it was just like greeting members back at his old gym. Then he heard it. A faint noise. He saw an elderly woman fighting her way up the stairs, telling his colleague he'd be right back. He rushed over with a quick explanation. "Someone needs my help." He asked if she was okay and what brought her to the temple. Her answer was simple: she came to pray. Upon hearing her destination was the Great Hall, he offered her a ride. She tried to refuse, saying it wasn't needed, but our hero insisted. After all, this was just another form of training, carrying her effortlessly. He made his introduction. "I am Mujin, a child disciple." To him, treating every elder with respect was just a basic human duty. It was a natural instinct, born from being raised by his grandparents, growing up with them, He developed an automatic, powerful impulse to care for the elderly. The old woman weighed almost nothing, feeling as light as a feather on his back. He marveled that with bad knees and a bad back, she had climbed all those steps alone. After she finished her prayers, the woman thanked him for his kindness. Mujin watched silently as she headed for the temple gates. But he suddenly called out, "Excuse me, do you have just a moment?" Meanwhile, in Dengfang Prefecture, Henan Province, not so far from that very temple, near Mujin's Shaolin Temple, the area also hosts a massive merchant guild. But complaints are rising about local factions. A man grumbles, "My life would be easy if they would just stay in line." Reflecting on this, Jiguangru, the guild's leader, considers boosting their forces. They have a huge presence in Gyeonggam, after all. Overwhelmed by the reports, his hand slams down on the desk. "I seriously need a break." Just then, a servant rushes in. "Sir, your mother, Madame Gahiyon, has returned." At the sight of the approaching palanquin, Jiguangru quickly moves to welcome her. He hurries to his mother's side. "The Shaolin Temple again. Mother," he asks with concern. He begs her to mind her own health, as she's too frail to be traveling so much. But Gahi responds with a calm smile.
"Don't you worry, I feel wonderful." She explains that she just had a
unique treatment at the Shaolin Temple. It was a new experience. She describes a new massage therapy, praising its incredible technique. It was so much better than the usual acupuncture and bitter tonics she'd grown to hate. Jiguangru is doubtful. How could that simple treatment cure her chronic issues? But as he looks closer, he notices the healthy color in his mother's face. And incredibly, even the tremors in her leg are gone, utterly amazed.
By the monk's ability, he makes a decision. He will visit the temple tomorrow
to meet this person himself. Back in his room, Mujin is lost in thought. Even after helping the elderly lady, something felt terribly wrong. It wasn't her resemblance to his grandmother, nor was it her unexpected wealth. The real issue was the emblem on her palanquin, which said Celestial Flow Merchant Group Model. That name? It instantly rang a bell. He remembered it was one of the 5 legendary merchant guilds from the world of the Fall of the Sinister Faction. And in that story, they weren't exactly on the side of the angels. They were enemies. Mujin stepped forward, introducing himself. He claimed to be a 3rd-generation disciple, but insisted. "Just call me Mujin." Gahi thanked him, charmed by the visit. She found him simply adorable. But Jiguang Ryu asked, "Were you the one who treated my mother?" The young man simply replied, "It was nothing at all." Smiling, the lady was happy to see him. She returned to pray. She said, and to get another one of his famous massages. She joked that if he weren't a monk, she would have set him up with her granddaughter. But Mujin smoothly invited her to bring her along next time anyway. Watching the scene, Jiguang Ryu noted that his own grandchildren weren't nearly this affectionate. His mother declared that she would absolutely bring her. The young man secretly celebrated seeing the lady's genuine smile. Then his gaze shifted. Mujin stared at Jiguang Ryu, finally. Recognizing the merchant group's leader, he assessed the current situation. For now, they were just a regular merchant group. But he remembered the truth from the novel. The Celestial Flow group was involved in horrible crimes like drug dealing, and even human trafficking. And while they weren't official allies of the villain, they definitely had some shady agreement in place. He concluded that they hadn't been corrupted just yet. This was his chance to discover the truth by getting closer to them. But his stare was noticed. "Is there something on my face?" Jiguang Ryu asked. Flustered, the young monk quickly denied it, changing the subject. He said the man must spend a lot. From his posture, noticing the man rub his own aching back, a flash of surprise. Jiguang Ryu asks, "How did you know?" He admits to reading a lot and not exercising. With a knowing smile, Mujin explains, "That slight curve in your back is the classic sign of an office worker." With a smooth transition, he comments, "Since you're already here, you could receive some treatment for yourself, right along with your mother." He agrees. Jiguang Ryu accepts. His interest piqued. He's curious about this kid's true skills, and so they head to Hyungwang's home. The master looks up, slightly surprised. Baeopjian notes the unexpected guests arriving at such an hour. Mujin enters with Gahiyon and her son. He calmly explains their visit. They've come for a treatment. Baeopjian asks if they can treat everyone. Hyungwang simply nods his approval. Mujin quickly divides the labor. "I'll handle the master and the lady. Baeopjian, you can take care of him." Showing off some unusual tools, Baeopjian describes the next step. A 4-limb extension technique. Mujin then turns to the master. "Today, we'll use the muscle strengthening machine." Hyungwang steps onto the device, foot on the pedal, hands on the grip, and begins to push back firmly. He remarks on the immediate feeling. Even for his first time on this rig, he can already tell it's working. Mujin provides gentle guidance. "Just let me know when your legs fatigue, and we'll move to the next step." He then turns, inviting the lady, to the spinal correction chair. He helps her settle into the contoured seat and asks her to recline. With a hint of unease, she remarks, "Even just lying? This part really seems to ache now." As Hyung Wang does his stretches, Moojin checks in. "How are you feeling?" The lady just smiles. She trusts him completely. He wouldn't suggest anything reckless. Then comes the big reveal. Hyung Wang admits he's been getting treatment from Moojin for a while now. This surprises her. She wonders why, since he looks perfectly healthy. The master explains. He says he was in a way worse shape before. Hearing this, she's convinced. Moojin must have the hands of a god. With all the chatter and laughter, the place felt less like a sacred temple and more like a high-end wellness retreat for seniors. Curious. Bobshian asks Jiguang Ryu about the famous extension technique. The man's reply, it was absolutely incredible. He goes into detail. It was brutally painful at the start, but that agony slowly faded away, leaving behind a state of pure bliss, overwhelmed with gratitude. The merchant, Chief, thanks him for the session. Meanwhile, Bobjin sighs in relief, glad he could actually help. Then he drops the truth bomb. Bobjin admits it was the very first time he'd ever used Moojin's technique on someone else. Jiguang Ryu freezes. As the merchant processes this, he recalls hearing the name Hyung Wang before. His eyes scan the area. He then overhears Bobkian's casual comment. Apparently, his master has a few more stubborn muscles to work on. Turning to Moojin, Bobkian asks with a grin. "Want to try the heat and shock therapy?" But with a wave of his hand, Hyung Wang refuses. He's feeling much better now. In fact, he can handle the treatment himself. Moojin's eyes widen. The old man already has enough internal energy to summon both fire and lightning ki. Gahiyan is thoroughly impressed. She finally saw that Hyung Wang was a man of immense talent. Stepping closer, Jiguang Ryu asked Byopkin, "Is that man's name truly Hyung Wang?" He saw the signs, realizing those were not the moves of any normal Marian practitioner. Then, the memories hit. 30 years ago, Hyung Wang was the one, the hero who crushed the demonic cult, that dared to invade the temple known as the greatest under heaven. Stunned, Jiguang Ryu could hardly process it. The man right there was the legendary divine monk of Shaolin. He recalled the old whispers, the rumors that said the master had been crippled after the cult's devastating attack. Witnessing this recovery, he concluded that the four-limb extension technique was what managed to cure him. Quietly, Jiguang Ryu started to believe that this entire encounter might have been ordained by fate. The healing he and his mother received was undoubtedly real, coming from a legendary master who had regained his lost power. And that insane technique was made by the young Moojin. At this point, there was no denying it. That boy was something else entirely. As night fell, Gahi thanked him once more, and Moojin simply replied, "It was my pleasure." Yang Wang began applying the same treatment, and the lady noted, "Oh, that sensation is quite pleasant." Later on, Moojin said his goodbyes, but Jiguang Ryu stopped him. "A moment, before you go," he stated he would return first thing in the morning to discuss something, asking to be led to the administrative hall. Moojin agreed to take him, but couldn't help but ask the reason for this sudden meeting. Jiguang Ryu replied, "I will explain tomorrow. This matter involves you too." He alerts the elders, left to guess what the merchant might be planning. The next morning, Moojin guides the merchant leader into Shaolin's administrative hall, where Elder Hyungyang waits. The old monk asks the visitor to repeat his absolutely insane proposal. Jiguang Ryu wants the celestial flow merchant group to partner with Moojin and open a brand new clinic together. For his mother's treatment, he offers 100 liang of pure gold, enough to feed the entire temple for a year. He sighs, acting like he wishes he could give even more at the moment. He claims the treatment was better than anything from the world's best doctors. Intrigued, another elder asks him to explain this clinic idea with Moojin a little more clearly. With a salesman's passion, he declares that Moojin's healing techniques are one of a kind on the continent. Believing in its money-making potential, he says it could help patients that traditional methods can't possibly cure. But the answer is an immediate no. Hyungyang says Shaolin doesn't exploit the sacred work of its disciples. He sees right through the plan, stating, the clinic would only ever serve the incredibly wealthy. Ouch. His scheme exposed, the merchant sputters, claiming that's not his only intention. He casually mentions he's part of the 5 great merchant guilds, reminding them he has connections everywhere. Of course, Jiguang Ryu's mind was on one thing: using Moojin's miracle cures on the rich and elderly would be obscenely profitable. But he plays it cool, deciding he first needs to build a solid bond with Shaolin. He proposes a new arrangement, suggesting that half of all profits would be given Shaolin's mission is to help the needy. However,
Haiyan counters that building true trust demands immense time and sincerity.
He warns that just one misunderstanding could shatter everything they've built. Finding this all a bit tedious, the head of administration's patience wears thin. He inwardly scoffs, wondering why they're even hesitating. After all, they desperately need the cash. Spotting an opening, Mujin sees a chance to use his old skills. His past life as a gym owner is perfect for this. Raising a hand, he respectfully asks to speak. Choosing his words carefully, he begins, "I believe I might have a solution." He pinpoints the main issue, noting that the problem is only treating the wealthy. The master nods, confirming this concern, so he proposes a bold new plan: treat everyone. No distinction between the rich and the poor. Utterly baffled, the two men just stare at him, demanding to know what he's suggesting. Mujin calmly explains his modern logic. If the fee is the same for all, the poor simply won't be able to afford it, which limits demand. Therefore, he proposes creating two separate facilities, not just one. The first one will be open to all, completely free of charge. The other, however, will be a premium service for the wealthy. As Ji Guangryu starts to question this,
Mujin simply asks him to hear him out. He already anticipates their next complaint.
I know, the rich will whine about being the only ones paying. The free facility.
We'll offer the standard forelimb extension technique on a daily schedule.
But the paid facility is where the real value is. It will include premium treatments and exclusive techniques, like the Heat and Thunder Kai treatment. It's the classic gym business model of basic membership, and then personal training for an extra fee. Absolutely blown away by this modern logic, Ji Guangryu wonders how a mere child could. I've considered something like that. Mujin calmly explains that the wealthy love luxury, and vanity is always a factor, which the merchant gets instantly. Finishing his point, Ji Guangryu says the free service
would be for groups, while the paid one is by reservation, tempting.
The rich with their own pride. Absolutely furious with this idea, Hyunung explodes with pure indignation. He then roars at Mujin, asking how a Shaolin disciple dares to mention profiting from worldly vanity, physique. The young man then asks
what the master is truly scared of, making him even more furious. Looking back,
Mujin recalls how, before, he feared Shaolin would look greedy by taking from the rich to aid the poor. Now he suggests a new way to help the poor, and the master opposes using the rich's vanity, making Mujin question Shaolin's very backbone. Growing even more incensed, Hyungyang demands how he dares to speak about Shaolin that way, cutting into the argument. Ji Guangryu asks if profiting from the rich truly harms Shaolin's esteemed name, admitting his worry. The hall chief says he fears the temple's reputation, but Mujin declares that he would be more ashamed for not helping those in need to avoid gossip. He continues, saying it matters not if others misunderstand, because the truth is all that counts. And the truth is, Shaolin works tirelessly to aid the people. It's the meaning behind the rules that matters. Staring at him, Hyungyang suddenly sees the vision of Master Yang Wang in the boy. Rising slowly, Hyungyang concedes that Mujin has a point, but warns that this decision will need the abbot's blessing. But the matter still requires some internal debate, overjoyed by the outcome. Ji Guangryu rejoices, his clever plan a success. Muttering under his breath, Mujin gripes, he just barely pushed the entire idea through, baffled by what the head monks are even thinking. Still, he finally got an in with the Celestial Flow Merchant Group. He can use this business as a front to investigate the group and unmask the true culprit. Later that night, Hyung meets Hyanchian, recounting all that transpired, earning himself an
overwhelmingly positive reply. With total conviction, the abbot declares,
Mujin is the chosen one to lead Shaolin towards its true destiny. Proposing a reward, Master Hyung Wang insists they reward the young man for all his recent achievements. Intrigued, Hyanshin wonders what reward would be fitting. The master answers that an elixir would be perfect. He adds that for it to be a real prize, it could only be that one. Stunned by this, the abbot is rendered speechless. In disbelief, he can't believe the master is serious.
The next day, during afternoon training, Mujin questions his master
about his visit and what's in his hand, presenting it to him, Yang. Wang explains it's a reward for his great service, adding that he procured it for him. Insight, the elixir of Shaolin, the pill of life, leaving Mujin utterly speechless. Elixir pills are a classic wuxia medicinal treasure, seen in historical dramas and Miriam novels. These special items are known for containing immense amounts of qi, and they're legendary for the massive boost in internal energy when consumed, with the Shaolin elixir pill being known to be the rarest treasure of all. Master Hyung Wang then presents him with his prize inside a small box. He tells Haizhang this is a reward for his incredible feat. Hyan Wang recalls he actually wanted the grand elixir pearl for his student, but the abbot suggested this smaller one for now. The master scoffs at this measly item, but admits that it is still a cause for celebration. While Haijung just ignores the remark, he asks if they don't think he's ready for the greater pearl. But Wang simply says, "You'll understand once you consume this one," the master, then urges him to absorb it right now, promising that he will help with the process. Haijung accepts with glee, since it's not every day one gets such an incredible chance. They arrive at a secluded pavilion in the forest, a perfect spot with plenty of qi flowing freely. Seated, his master explains that absorbing an elixir's qi is a whole new beast and works in the complete opposite way to the usual method. The normal technique is slowly breathing in qi, but with this, the energy floods directly to the stomach. Haijong realizes that instead of focusing on his breathing, he must focus on the qi of the elixir instead. His master confirms this, but warns him that if he gets greedy and tries to hold it all, he will descend into a state known as the fiery demon. Haijong states he understands the gravity of the task, as he has never seen his master look this serious. So he braces himself and swallows the pearl in one gulp. While meditating, he feels the small elixir's power flowing inside him. He wonders how to absorb with this power and thinks, "It's showtime. Time to test out this focus technique." He activates the Great Buddha focus technique. Down the hatchet goes, hitting his stomach and erupting outwards. The energy floods his entire body, and suddenly, it all makes sense. So this is why those martial arts heroes hunt for these treasures so desperately. He steels himself, needing to absorb every last drop, just as his grandfather ordered. 30 minutes pass. Sweat pours down his face as he struggles. With the sheer power, Haijong realizes, so this is why they said not to be greedy? The pearl's qi is leaking everywhere. The amount of qi is just too much. His body simply can't contain it all. But then, he remembers his master's words. The qi he fails to absorb simply escapes with every breath he takes, over and over. Still, Haijong presses on, focusing on his breathing, inhale and exhale. He finally opens his eyes, guessing he only managed to absorb about a third of the power. But hey, he figures that's probably more than enough. No use crying over spilled spiritual energy. Later, Mujin reports to his master, saying he tried his best not to be greedy, but it seems he failed. Yang Wang just nods. That little elixir pearl holds immense power. Then he drops a bombshell. Mujin actually absorbed all of the pearl's power. But this little miracle was only possible because of Hyung Wang's secret help. As the young man was struggling, the master was catching all the qi that was escaping from his student. He combined it with the natural qi nearby so none of it would be wasted, and Mujin, completely unaware, was guided to return that energy back into his body, bit by bit. It was a nearly impossible feat, but Hyung Wang couldn't bear to let his disciples' efforts from being wasted. Mujin felt his entire body quaking, asking how a single tiny pearl could hold such immense qi. He could barely even stand. Straight, Yang Wang simply smirked. It was all going according to plan. He told the boy to follow. Mujin asked how they'd fix this overload, and his master calmly revealed the perfect training for his current predicament. The only way to tame the raging energy inside was with an unbreakable mind. So naturally, he dragged him to a waterfall for the unwavering mind technique. The whole point was to force him to control the qi and train his mind to be completely still. It's the classic training for Supreme Yankee users like Hyodum and his crew. Basically, it's a method to learn how to manage the wild and explosive nature of their power. Think of it like this: some people chant with Buddhist prayer beads, while others might focus entirely on their happiest memories. In short, the unwavering mind technique is all about keeping your mind and body perfectly calm. Hyung then declared that, after hours of meditation, it was showtime, time to test his movements. And Mujin unleashed the chain-linking fist. After hours of visualizing the technique, under the roaring falls, Mujin finally mastered his energy flow. The resulting power was absolutely insane, enough to slice the entire waterfall in two, and just like that, Mujin leveled up again. He stared at Yang Wang. The boy's insane growth brought the old master even more profound enlightenment. As a sign of gratitude, the two shared a meaningful glance and bowed. They trained like this for 2 whole days. Then the master asked, "Are you ready?" But before the abbot and the monks, it's declared that Mujin is not old enough to finally enter the world, so 5 guardians must protect him. Elsewhere, Jig Wang Ryu reports that nearly all of the preparations are now complete. They just need to head to Dongfang Prefecture for final verification. The abbot praises Mujin for his tireless efforts, and Yang Wang gives his command: "Go, do your best, and return." Mujin expresses his gratitude, honored by the trust shown to him.
He vows that Shaolin and the celestial flow.
Merchant group will stand together as one. Their combined strength will help the people overcome the great crisis that they now face. Hyung Wang nods in agreement. With the master's blessing, his disciple begins the long journey ahead. Mujin departs from the temple grounds. In a darkened room, a lone woman at a table is asked if the time to move has come. A voice pierces the silence. Lady Silwa,